Happy Friday, everyone. It's GameFace, episode 1010 on SIFTD Games.
1010?
1010, 110.
1,010 of these? How long have we been here?
I'll tell you what, this time, next week, I'm going to be asking myself that, how long have I been here?
Remember this clip from when we do 1,010.
I think that's highly unlikely that I will remember this clip then. I can remember clips from episodes, 30 episodes ago. But welcome. We're here to talk to you guys about the biggest news in gaming for the week and some stuff that may not quite be the biggest news because this was a really slow week in video games.
Yeah, we seem to have burned our fuel for the fall a little bit so far.
Well, we were talking
Anything
about...
else big coming? Xenoblade, I guess?
Xenoblade Chronicles 2, that's it. That's really the last big game of the year. And
I guess that's good. They're kind of spreading releases out across the year a little better, maybe.
Yeah, well, 2017 kind of blew its load early.
Right.
I mean, it was an amazing first, 6 months.
Yeah, a lot of stuff that was supposed to be holiday 2016 ended up in there.
Right. And here we are. I mean, it's really weird to be in the middle of November, Black Friday coming up next Friday, and not have a lot of games to really talk about. It's kind of crazy. It's different. It's not been this way for...
Well, it's a good thing the one that did come out has a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, that's for sure. We're going to dive deep on Star Wars Battlefront II today. Don't you worry about that. There are so many angles to talk about with this.
It could be days. Yeah. I mean, it's... Wow, they certainly... I mean, and that's the thing, is Battlefront 2 could have been it's it's a lot like the first one. It's a cool, great Star Wars.
That probably would have been good.
That is not what happened. So we are,
Yeah, we'll be talking about that. I also want to give you a heads up that there will not be a GameFace next week. In lieu of GameFace, I will be here live streaming a Patreon push for at least 12 hours. We'll see how it goes. The plan right now is to start around noonish Pacific time, which would be 3 p.m. Eastern time, and go to at least midnight. And then we'll see how I feel at midnight and see how farther I push it past that. But yeah, so all day next Friday on Black Friday, I'll be right here streaming all the latest games, all the big games, and maybe I'll get back to some Dark Souls as well. We'll see how glutton for punishment I am. I'll say one thing, though. The section where I played Dark Souls, if you go back and look at kind of the record of our Patreon, that is when we generated the most new patrons.
Well, because it's the most entertaining.
Yeah, I guess. Or maybe people just felt bad for me.
I almost got in my car and drove over here because you were fucking up so bad. It was just, I was driving me crazy. And that's, I mean, look, man, there's people that base their entire streams on that shit.
I know.
It's like watching someone play a game badly is the most riveting and annoying thing in the world.
It all depends on your perspective.
And I think it's cathartic.
Yeah.
I think there's some mental good to be derived from that.
I need some catharsis after playing that game.
But it's, I think that's a winner. I think that's a ratings gold,
Bonanza,
Jerry.
Yeah. So, anyway, next Friday, Black Friday, I will be here live streaming all day. I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to be online, surfing for deals, trying to get the best deals you can on whatever it is you're looking for. Worst case scenario, you can always put us on in the background while you do that. Yeah. So
watch it on your phone while you're in line at Best Buy or something.
Yep. We're coming down the home stretch here. Only a few more episodes left in 2017 for GameFace.
Yep.
And one of those obviously will be our Game of the Year award show that we do every year. So really just a couple regular GameFaces left for 2017. But we have a good show for you today, even though the topics are not that. I think we only have 5 or 6 topics today, which is short for GameFace. So let's do it. Let's get on with it. We're going to talk first about Cyberpunk 2077. Some people may not even know what this game is, Matt.
And some people might be really sick of waiting for it already.
Yeah.
Even though we're, probably 3-4 years out, I would think?
I mean, the debut trailer launched in 2013. And I know that because SIFTD launched after that. And every once in a while, I come across stuff that should be on the site that isn't.
And concept art and stuff was being put out before in 2012.
It was January 2013. When this was shown, and we have got nothing since. This is the only piece of media.
Yeah, they decided to focus on Witcher 3, and
there's a couple of screenshots out there, but they aren't even really screenshots. They're art stills. But this is all we've got of this game so far. For those of you who don't know, it's the next game. And then usually when stuff like this happens, the publisher will say, "We're sorry, we're working on better work life." No, CD Projekt Red was that's the way it is.
Yep.
If you don't like it, you can get out if you want to work on a game.
But developers shouldn't have to work. And it's just their fate.
Yeah.
You're okay.
Yeah, I mean, they basically said, like, look, working on this game is going to be a huge resume builder for you, and stick it out till the game's done, and then move on and work someplace else where it's nicer, basically.
I mean, that's kind of also the Naughty Dog model.
It is. You're right. Yeah, it's kind of the same deal. You get the same stories come out of Naughty Dog. People working like crazy hours, burning out.
You get one project on your resume, and then you can go and basically pick your battle.
And Naughty Dog puts out all these recruiting videos, and you can see it in their eyes because they talk to their employees, and you just see this dead, hollow look in their eyes. You're like, oh man, I don't want nothing to do with that.
Like you're waiting for if you forget to cut the clip, and they just sort of crawl back under their desk.
Roll out their sleeping bag and just kind of curl up. That's what you're getting. And it sounds like CD Projekt Red is kind of the same way. And you're right. Looking at games like The Witcher, it's easy to understand why. Just huge, sprawling games with just tons and tons of content and still managing to kind of keep that AAA edge to all of it. That's no easy task. You would think they might staff up a little bit, though, after all the success that they've had.
I mean, you think they could do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we don't know where Cyberpunk is in the development process. Like, you probably aren't in super staff-up mode yet.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably like
it
a year
should
out.
Be.
Well, because you don't really need that until you're really creating everything, all the assets, and getting all that in place. Like, the structure has to be there first. And it feels like it's so far out, it might not be at that point yet. But given how much content Witcher 3 had, and maybe how much this will probably have, you've got to be getting close.
Yeah. Well, anyway, the reason we're really talking about Cyberpunk 2077 is because this week it came out that it is... Maybe we're inferring a little bit here, but
I think we are.
But CD Projekt Red said is going to have online services to extend its life. And so when I hear that, the red flags start going off in my mind, and it's like, that's a game as a service.
To me, that makes me think because I can't see CD Projekt Red leaving the comfort zone of the giant single-player RPG, because that's what they do. But I could see it becoming, if this is a more action-oriented, shooting-oriented title,
which it appears to
probably
be,
is.
Because if you look at the teaser, it's all guns.
Right. I mean, if Cyberpunk, and this is based on an old pen and paper RPG called Cyberpunk. It was just called Cyberpunk, and then they added the year to make it more trademarkable. And to differentiate it from the genre that was what came about. It became exploded because this RPG is from the 80s.
Yeah.
So I would not be surprised if they did like a Mass Effect thing where like there was like some kind of co-op mode with where you'd buy the crates in Mass Effect 3. I think it was the same in Mass Effect Andromeda, but I never actually played the co-op in that because it's hard enough getting through the single player, people. And so I wouldn't surprise me to see that kind of a thing added to to add some longevity. But people are.
Do you think that really adds longevity though?
It did for Mass Effect. I don't know if there's enough variance and novelty in a horde mode, side mode thing to really do anything like that. And because when is this game going to come out? 2020?
God knows, 2077 probably. Maybe that's what it is. Its release date is in the title.
I mean, it'd be good to get it out in 2019 because that's the year Blade Runner takes place. You can kind of mess with that a little bit.
Yeah.
And Warner Brothers has published Witcher in the past, so they would have some leeway to kind of do some Blade Runner tie-ins.
But right now Warner Brothers is not publishing this game.
Is anyone publishing
It's some little dinky publisher has it signed right now. Yeah.
Weird.
I don't know if it'll stay that way, but for right
now... In the past,
like
CD Projekt self-published The Witcher 3, but then Warner Brothers handled physical distribution.
Yeah.
And maybe not even worldwide, maybe only in the West.
Yeah, maybe just been certain territories.
But yeah, I don't see CD Projekt Red going full Overwatch with it or anything in that regard.
But what about full Destiny with it?
That would be hard for me to believe.
How come?
Because that's not what CD Projekt does. I mean, granted, that's also not what Bungie did, but I think it's a shorter leap from what Bungie did to what Destiny became than from what The Witcher 3 to Destiny. You know what I mean?
Is this just maybe wishful thinking on your part? I
don't think so. No. I mean, until I have some kind of evidence that they intend to make this some kind of a multiplayer MMO light, or kind of whatever that EA moved the Star Wars game up to EA Vancouver to become, that's just not what CD Projekt does. And also CD Projekt has a history over 3 games now of being exceedingly consumer friendly.
Yeah.
And all the stuff we got for free on The Witcher 3, a bunch of stuff, all the enhanced stuff where they fixed all the things in Witcher 2 for no extra charge. They completely remade Witcher 1 and gave people who already owned it the enhanced version for free.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, they're not about nickel and diming the consumer.
I agree with that. I agree with that perspective totally.
And can that change? Yeah. I mean, shit like that can pivot on a dime.
That's my fear, though.
But I just don't see that happening with them. Not yet.
I don't know.
If they changed like management or leadership or ownership, maybe I would be more worried. But right now, they get the benefit of the doubt until I see something I don't like.
See, the reason I brought up its labor practices when we first started talking about this is because that, to me, shows that CD Projekt Red has a little bit of an edge to it. That it's maybe not as friendly as... Look, it makes great games. There's no denying that. But there's a lot of companies that make great games and then you go and work there, or make great products in general, and then you go and you work there for a month and you're like, oh my God, this is nothing like what I thought this company was. And so really the only hints that we've got of what it's like sort of beneath the surface there have not been especially flattering.
Right, but I don't think that's related to what they're going to make.
Well, I think they're trying to save money, obviously. I mean, they are.
Or they know
to me, that tells me that they are very concerned with money.
Well, all companies are.
Right.
But like I think all what you're seeing there is basically what we've been doing, the way we've been doing it has been working, so we're not going to change it.
That's certainly a different perspective.
Like, because like, hey, like, okay, you can complain about, because their the little letter thing they put out to me also read like, we got done what we needed to get done by using people the way we use them, and until a concrete reason other than I don't like it comes along, we're going to keep doing that. So like, to me, it read like, complain all you want, but you can't argue with success. Yeah. And it read to me a very conservative, not politically conservative, but like a conservative in terms of viewpoint of, hey, we got a formula and we're going to keep doing it. And that to me says they don't want to change things, and that means to me Cyberpunk is probably going to be The Witcher 3 with guns.
You also have to remember too, though, that was written by a PR person.
Yeah.
And it's their job to spin things to make the company look as good as possible. Bottom line is, CD Projekt Red doesn't want to expend as much money as another studio would under a big publisher to create a game of the same quality. It wants to cut corners. And
but that's also what we complain about all the time with the inflated budgets and all this, and why you have to sell micro. So the fact that they are trying to keep it down like that is probably why they could afford to not have that kind of games as a service element to their game.
Yeah.
I mean, the online thing, that could mean anything. It could mean leaderboards. It could mean, it could mean like...
They wouldn't
it could mean like a dark...
if it was something like that,
It could mean like a Dark Souls style mingle player thing where you see it. Because the thing about The Witcher 3 with multiplayer not making any sense in is because you play a singular character.
Right.
That may not be the case in Cyberpunk 2077.
Right.
So you might be able to see other maybe there is going to be like a Destiny style hub thing where you just sort of pass each other. And maybe it's not related to what's happening, but like I could see kind of like if there's sort of like the hot nightclub place. Maybe when you go in there, you can see other players or something like that. Like you don't know what they're thinking.
I just think the fact that they made a point to announce it now is a pretty big deal.
Well, at least
because they're getting it in players' minds that this is where we're going. So start thinking about it, mentally preparing for it. Because what you see with a lot of other games is stuff like this comes out in the last month or 2 months or even last 6 months of development, and sometimes the public reacts one way, sometimes they react the other way. When you tell somebody this 2 or 3 years before, you're mentally preparing them for what it ultimately is going to be. And so I feel like if it was something insignificant like leaderboards or a social hub or whatever, I don't think they would have mentioned it now. I think this is going to be a big component of the game in one way or another, and that's why they've mentioned it 2 or 3 years before the game's even coming out. I
don't know about that. I feel like, it's partly because, like, hey, we know we're going to do this. Whatever it is, they know it's going to be part of the game. So it's something they can say that's news. It's something they can say, it's like, hey, here's new information about the game. It's not really any information, something that people feel is pro-consumer. So it's in their DNA to kind of, like, figure that kind of thing out. And they've already done it with, post-launch updates, and they've done it with DLC practices. And now maybe they can do it with online stuff. Maybe they can find a way to make it feel not exploitative and more like a bonus.
I have a question, actually, I don't know the answer to. Is CD Projekt Red a private company, or is it owned by someone else?
Private company.
It is private.
As far as I know, it's an independent company.
Because that could make a big difference, too.
Started as its own little thing. It is kind of as I understand it, it's kind of a Polish icon. Like
I can see that.
They're very celebrated in Poland because The Witcher is actually Harry Potter big.
Right.
It's the Witcher books are Harry Potter big and
make more money. Like a lot more money. Not even like, and maybe CD Projekt Red looks at it like, well, look, if we can make more money off of Cyberpunk 2077 doing a games as a service while still trying to do it with consumers in mind, then maybe that extra money that we have goes to the next game, and then maybe our work environment isn't so god-awful.
Maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah.
It is Eastern Europe.
It is, yeah.
Like,
touche.
It's a different world.
It is,
and,
for sure.
You know, I've even seen some Polish people basically say, like, I mean, yeah, they pay Polish wages, so you think it's low, but that's just how it is here. And it's just like, well, that doesn't mean it should be.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That. But, like, I don't know, maybe that's an idealized Western idea. It's not like we don't have our own issues in that arena. But, like, I just think, you know, and I also think, like, you know, the CD Projekt Red guys are not stupid, clearly, and they see what's going on. Like, there are a lot of smart people that make stupid decisions in this industry. Yeah, but, like, I think, and we'll probably talk about this later on, but I think part of the reason those stupid decisions happen are because of the labyrinth of bureaucratic and corporate mazes that get created in these giant conglomerates, and CD Projekt Red, as far as I can tell, is not that. Yeah. It's still its own company. It's still an insomniac.
Well, the one thing I will say is, you know, all you can really go on is a company's track record. And so far, CD Projekt Red's track record has been impeccable.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks. Their labor practices suck. But as far as how they treat consumers and the quality of the products that they create, it's really hard to find any fault with them. So until then, I am more than willing to give it the benefit of the doubt.
Just as someone who puts the money down and buys a game and plays it, like, you got no reason to doubt them yet.
Agreed.
But we know stuff can change overnight.
It absolutely can, and money corrupts everything.
Yep.
And when you're staring at that data, and you're like, what, we can get another $200 or $300 million out of this game?
And who knows what the state of the industry will be by the time Cyberpunk is ready to come out. Like, maybe it becomes a survival tactic. We don't know. Like, we don't know what it's going to be like then.
Yeah, we'll actually talk about NPD here a little bit later in the show, where that app might be apt. So, all right, let's move along. We're going to talk next about Jade Raymond, one of our favorites in the industry. Probably the shepherd who got Assassin's Creed
very
to
much
where it is.
Her and Patrice were kind of the masterminds, I would say.
And it's not even really about who the mastermind was. She is just such a likable, radiant person that her as the spokesperson for that franchise when it first launched, I think I just think everybody gave it a chance. Because when you really go back and play the first Assassin's Creed, it's not really an amazing game. It was
I still love it.
I still like it because it's really groundbreaking for the time, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it. But you go back and play it, it's kind of clunky, it's a little archaic.
Oh yeah, and you can't skip any of the cutscenes.
Yeah.
But I actually did go back and play it briefly because of it was the 10th anniversary this week.
I know, it's crazy.
10 years.
I can't believe it's been 10 years. Oh. I don't know if there's anything that has made me feel more old than finding out that Assassin's Creed was 10 years old.
Yep.
Because Assassin's Creed, when it first came out, like, I look back on myself at that point in time as I was becoming an older adult. And so then I tack 10 years onto that, and I'm like, holy crap.
Like, wow. And then, like,
I'm an older adult now.
And, like, I remember when that came out, it was one of those things where I was like, I mean, I loved it, first Assassin's Creed. Obviously, 2 and Brotherhood built on it was better.
Yeah.
But I saw kind of
You can see what was
I saw the magic in it.
Yeah, yeah.
And didn't hurt that one of the window boxes looked like Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
Which apparently somebody got in trouble for.
Oh, really?
Apparently you're not allowed to put little Easter egg things in Ubisoft games if you're not approved. And there was when someone noticed it, the window boxes, and I think it was Accra, looked like the front of Optimus Prime's truck mode.
Yep.
I guess I don't remember where I saw it. I saw some like Kotaku or something thing where it's like, oh yeah, this is not a good deal.
But launching new IP isn't easy.
Oh,
and let's be honest.
But I remember playing it and being like, "Oh, this is going to be around for. This is a new gaming icon."
Yeah,
I knew that.
Well, its debut trailer was. I still remember pretty much every frame of it, and it was one of the most watched trailers ever on Game Trailers back in the day. And that's kind of when we knew things were going to take off. But then you have Jade, who is very easy on the eyes. She's a great person. Everybody who ever meets her has nothing but amazing things to say about her. Repping this game. And I think she's kind of the one that helped put it over the top. And I feel like then Patrice, for the following sequels, kind of stepped to the fore. He's like, I'm the guy making this thing. Hey, what's up?
Well, she also didn't want to be in the forefront anymore.
Yeah.
So.
But she did her job. Like, she launched a franchise. And so now she's heading up Motive Studios for EA, the Star Wars studio that hasn't been shut down yet. And they announced this week that game is not planned for release until 2021. 2021.
Yep.
Matt, that is 4 years from right now.
Yep, it's a long time. Which seems like that might be the next Star Wars game.
Well, no, I think we'll get Battlefront 3
in 2
2019.
Years? Maybe after this.
I think we'll get Respawn's game before that.
It could be.
Maybe.
We're in a weird place here right now because the Star Wars deal is 10 years. It started in 2013. With the EA's license for this started in 2013. Next year, a year from now, where there's no Star Wars game plan for next year as far as we know.
Mm-hmm. Which is a huge mistake.
We'll be halfway through the deal, 5 years into the deal, and they've got 2 games out.
Yeah, and they're the same game.
Yeah, they're a sequel to the same
franchise,
a version of a game that already existed in the pre-EA era, and then a sequel to that has created a PR disaster that Disney had to get involved with.
Right.
And I feel like unless there's some amazing turnaround happening here in the next few years, like you're going to see that license go to another publisher.
So basically, you're saying that Motive's game would be the last game under that deal,
unless they get a Battlefront 4 out. I don't know where else you're going.
Which at that point, it may very well happen because
I don't know. Like, do you Sims Star Wars? Like, what else have they got? Sim City Coruscant? Like,
they could start barfing stuff like that out, though.
I'd kind of play SimCity Coruscant.
Yeah, I would too.
I wouldn't.
I totally would,
that.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely would.
And whatever the EA Vancouver Destiny,
whatever happens with that,
yeah,
like God knows when that's coming out now.
I mean, if they're starting from more or less scratch on that, like what? That's potentially a 4-year development cycle.
I can't fathom why Motive would take 4 years from now to get that game done.
What's their motive?
Right. Well, Motive did come out this week and say, we've come up with some kind of crazy new gameplay thing that's going to make people flip out. So if you're that far along in development that you've come up with a new gameplay paradigm, you're saying 4 years from now?
It's a very good question.
That's insane.
And you're like, we don't know. Like, is it related to the license? Is it going to tie into something that happens in the movie with movie releases that far out? Like, what's happening? Like, what's determining this release date? Because that's a long dev time.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, think of the budget that's going to run up by then.
Just to pay people, period.
Just to pay their salaries.
Yeah, let alone like actual development costs that are incurred by tech development and all that. Yeah,
all the other stuff. Yeah. Well, they're going to use Frostbite apparently, which
you gotta stop.
Yeah, I'm really over Frostbite at this point.
And this is I think we'll get to Battlefront 2, but I think that this is the first time I've seen Frostbite face in a DICE game.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like usually DICE uses their engine very well, but this it's just everything's got the same equality to it. Need for Speed last week had that same look to it, and it's not a good look, I don't think.
Well, I'll say this much. Battlefront looks a heck of a lot better than Need for Speed.
It does. But it's like
a heck of a lot.
I think, there's certain engines have a certain house look, kind of.
Yeah.
And, like Unreal, certainly until, the advanced version, 4 around, Unreal had didn't do hair very well, so everybody had a crew cut or a shaved head, and or just sort of a mop of, the women just had like a kind of a
helmet.
A helmet of texture.
Right.
And, there was always kind of a shiny thing. Unreal 3.0 had the texture pop-in problem where like it would draw in the high-res texture, like very obviously the Mass Effect games had that going on.
Frostbite does a little bit of that too.
A little bit, but not as bad. Yeah. But I think it has worse issues on the other side, and if they haven't been forced to work on that. So
do you think maybe Motive's building a new engine?
God, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
I mean, for a 4-year development cycle,
it wouldn't be a bad idea for the woman who was in charge of Assassin's Creed to build her own engine for this game.
You're right. I mean,
I
don't know how much she had to do with that.
No, but she was involved in the project, and she knows how that rolls. So, it couldn't hurt.
I mean, we're not going to see this Motive game. This Motive game is going to be a PS5, Xbox 2 game. That's the bottom line.
Oh, yeah. Like, second year.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, if they're announcing now that it's coming out in 2021, I mean, it could end up being delayed.
Yeah, that could slip. That's true.
Or maybe they're just covering their butts and saying 4 years. If you can't get it done in 4 years, maybe they're trying to deliver a pleasant surprise when it comes out in 2020. I don't know. It seems insane to me. How many games get 4-year development cycles now? Like none.
Not many. I mean, Call of Duty gets 3, but that's only because they've got 3 teams rotating in and out.
Yep.
That's a long time, especially for a company that EA that really doesn't put a lot out.
With those kinds of resources and that kind of financial backing, it's mind-boggling that it would take that long.
And it feels like I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what's happening behind this. There's so much money tied up in Star Wars, and Star Wars.
And
like,
look, it's money well invested.
Sure, but like, it's like you could be making. I mean, you have to be Lucasfilm and Disney looking at this and being like, if we picked a game publisher that could get stuff out on a yearly basis cleanly, we would be making a lot more money off this.
That's why Pact said that they bought Respawn.
That would make sense.
Yeah, the latest Pact or Factor, he was asked about it, and he's like, it's really smart because Respawn gets his games done on time.
Right.
It gets his games done on budget, and they're amazing games.
And you know what I would do, and maybe this is what they're doing. Maybe Battlefront 3 is Respawn.
It's possible.
Because I would take that in a heartbeat.
Oh,
right
yeah.
now.
For sure.
Because they're using, I don't know what engine they use. I mean, I know Titanfall was like a modified Source engine. I don't know what Titanfall 2 uses.
I don't either, actually.
But
someone in chat probably knows.
Titanfall 2 does not have the Frostbite look because clearly they're not using that. Like,
it looks amazing.
Shifting over to that side, like I would be.
I mean, just use that engine, whatever. it is,
use whatever use Respawn's own tech and make Battlefront 3 that way. I am in.
I mean, Titanfall 2, in my opinion, is one of the best looking shooters of this generation.
Yeah.
So I'm 100% down with that. But yeah, it looks like Motive's game is a long ways off. That's some job security for Jade.
They are credited on Battlefront 2, so they did something there.
They did something there.
I don't know what, but their logo pops up at the beginning.
Oh, I didn't notice that, actually.
Yeah, like the Motive's logo pops up when you first boot the game up. So they did something on this. I don't know what it was.
Well, maybe that's why it's now 4 years.
Maybe the campaign stuff?
It's possible. Maybe they were helping finish Battlefront 2, and that's why they're getting started late on their game. It's exciting to hear that they have some kind of new gameplay thing going on.
I mean, I want to see Jade Raymond's take on Star Wars, no question.
And I wanted to see Amy Hennig.
I want to see Amy Hennig, too. I go, hopefully in 2020 they don't fire all them and cancel that game and move it to EA Montreal to be turned into a card battle title.
Well, I'll tell you this much. If it does happen, they are definitely not renewing that license. Without a doubt. That is it. All done.
It's it amazes me how much trouble EA seems to have been having with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like this, everyone who plays video games and likes Star Wars has an idea for Star Wars in their head, as an idea for a game they would make.
Yeah.
And it's like even if you want to be lazy, just make another X-Wing game, make another Force Unleashed game, make another Shadows of the Empire, remaster Shadows of the Empire. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like just get content out there.
Yeah, because people are going to buy it. It may not sell as well as the Battlefront or whatever, but. And why aren't they milking that license a little more and doing stuff like card battle games? And...
Why not a modern version? Screw making Need for Speed over and over again. Make a pod racing game that's as good as what we had on the N64. Like, I mean,
remaster the pod racing
and just
game.
Experiment a little bit. Like, you remember, like there was that period of like '98 to like 2002 when we got like Super Bombad Racing and like the Twisted Metal ripoff and like the weird 3D like strategy game that wasn't even playable really.
Yeah.
But they were trying. It was a 4X game.
Right.
They may have Rebellion, I think it was.
I'd play a Star Wars 4X game.
Yeah, and it's just like
in a heartbeat.
I mean, it wouldn't sell, but
you don't think?
No.
You don't think Civ Star Wars would sell?
Not to the degree that EA would be happy with it, which is part of the problem.
It would sell better than Civ, I think, though, and Civ sells pretty well.
Maybe, but maybe you go to 2K, but 2K's got microtransaction problems of its own.
Well, 2K also has a problem of getting games out in a decent amount of time. They're just...
Well, we couldn't have that with Star Wars.
No. What publisher should Disney go to for Star Wars games?
Maybe they should do it themselves, because that worked out pretty well for a while with LucasArts.
Yeah. Oh, you mean bring back LucasArts, basically.
I mean, LucasArts really is just an internal division of Lucasfilm now.
Yeah.
A lot of the same people that ran LucasArts are still there running LucasArts under a different name and take a Lucas
It would be
Games
so.
division.
I mean, you have to build up all those studios and do all the hiring. I don't think it would work.
Yeah.
It's easier to do that.
But I mean, they should do what they were doing near the end, which is they were contracting out individual developers to make the game. Like Lucasfilm handles the publication and kind of the executive
so you get Creative
style.
Assembly to build the RTS,
right? Or you get Insomniac to make the action game, or you contract it, and then like. For publication, you publish it through Disney's wing.
Maybe EA should start doing that. Because it's really screwing the pooch on this license right now.
EA, I mean, maybe this is just me, because like EA, a lot of what EA makes isn't interesting to me because of how much sports stuff and kind of the Me Too racing games they put out for Need for Speed every couple of years. I just feel like EA is a really barren field. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot there for me, especially now that Mass Effect took a dive. And like, I'm basically... EA to me right now is me sitting around hoping that a Star Wars game eventually comes out or that BioWare gets Anthem done on time. You know, like I don't know what else to look forward to.
I mean, Anthem's coming pretty soon. Supposed to be.
Yeah, well, let's see what...
We haven't seen a whole lot of it, though.
Let's see what the loot boxes are for that one.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about new entries in 2 franchises from Japan. Two franchises that some would argue we haven't seen in a long time. The first we're going to talk about is Devil May Cry. And the reason I said some people may say we haven't seen a new entry in some time is because a lot of people don't really count DMC Devil May Cry as canon, as a canon entry into the Devil May Cry franchise.
And I understand why you wouldn't consider that part of the same series because it's good. And I like Devil May Cry okay, but like the only Devil May Cry, Capcom Devil May Cry game I would call a really good game is 3.
Yeah.
I didn't...
Well, certainly not 2.
No, not 2.
2 is one of the worst sequels in the history of video games.
1 I found like okay, but sort of annoying, and 4 was fine.
1 was charming.
Yeah, one was different at the time. Like, 1 was, and also it grew out of a Resident Evil game of all things, which was like, that was kind of amazing to be playing that game and thinking this started as Resident Evil.
Yeah, it really is bizarre.
But it was just, you know, it still had that kind of cheesy. I don't know if it's charm really, but it was.
No, I think the first word you used was accurate. Cheesy.
Yeah, it's like with all the whole like, whoa, slow down, babe. Like it's like written by like a person who would once heard of an '80s movie,
right?
You know, kind of an action movie. But it looked cool, and he was an iconic design, and
I mean, honestly, in my opinion,
he should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light. You know?
Yeah. No, I think you're right. The best Devil May Cry game is DMC Devil May Cry.
I mean, I understand why people don't consider that to be the same character.
No, I get it.
But
I totally get it, too.
I think it's a better game than all but Devil May Cry 3.
Well, I think Devil May Cry 4 is probably my personal favorite of the Japanese-developed Devil May Cry games.
I like 3 because 3 is an incredibly intricate and demanding combat system that reminds me of a really good fighting game.
4 is like that, too, though.
4 has that, but 3...
4 is hard as nails, man.
So's 3. 3 is special.
Yeah.
4 is cool. I didn't like that they didn't let me play Dante until the second half of the game.
Well, the other problem, too, is that the game is technically really short.
Right, you go here and then you go all the way back.
All the way back and go through the
same... Soul Reaver 2 style.
Yeah, which is a really cheap way to extend a game. But I did enjoy it.
Halo 1 did that, too.
Yeah, it did. And then there's the library, which, to me, is...
Well, the library is the end. And then you spend the rest of the game going all the way back.
Right, yeah. But I did enjoy Devil May Cry 4, and of the Japanese-developed games, it's obviously the most technologically advanced because it is the last one. Do you think they should go back to the Japanese style of development with this? And it sounds like that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Because Devil May Cry's creator in Japan, after E3, said that he apologized for not showing his new project. We should probably go back to why we're talking about this as well. So this week on Reddit, and I know Reddit posts, take it with a grain of salt, someone on Reddit, and this guy has a reputation for breaking things and being accurate about it. He has a track record of 3 or 4 different games or features in games that he knew about first and broke. So it's not just some random jackhole going on Reddit and saying blah, blah, blah. But this guy came out and said, at PSX, you're going to see the new Devil May Cry, and you're going to see Soulcalibur. And we're going to get to Soulcalibur here in a second. But which do you think is the right call, Matt? I mean, there's 2 different angles of that. There's financially, and then there's selfishly, artistically. Right. So what would you prefer yourself, and what do you think is a smarter move financially?
Well, myself, I would probably prefer going to the older aesthetic.
Agreed.
I think Ninja Theory's game is a better game than most of the other Devil May Cry's, but I don't like the character design. I prefer the old one. I would prefer to play as old-style Dante in a more Ninja Theory-style game. Yeah,
I don't like the aesthetic of the new DMC really at all.
No. It's just, I mean, it looks, I think it actually looks good for what they're trying to do. I just don't think it's appropriate to the game, to the series. It's not, Devil May Cry is the white-haired asshole in a long red coat
eating a slice of pizza,
right? And and there's something about the kind of the heightened Japanese sort of anime style that like makes a lot of the weirdness of the world work.
It makes it a little bit more passable for whatever weird reason.
So I personally would prefer to go back to the old style. Business-wise, I don't know if it really matters.
I don't think DMC sold especially well.
Well, business-wise, I think the smart move would not be to not make it at all, because character action games don't really sell. I mean, if Bayonetta 2 didn't move the needle, I don't know how good these things need to be to do anything. Like,
well, Bayonetta 2 had some other stuff working against it.
Well, it was on the Wii U, but even for a Wii U game, it didn't sell tremendously well. And like, it's just, that series still struggles. That series, I think Bayonetta is better than any of the Devil May Cry.
Oh, it absolutely is.
And
I mean, the point really is that Bayonetta is one of the best action games of the last decade. And it still couldn't sell.
But find me someone outside of our core demographic that knows what it is.
Right.
These games just don't have mass appeal for whatever reason. So if they're going to make another one business-wise, probably just appeal to the old-school fans as best you can, because that's going to be your largest audience.
Yeah.
You're not going to sell 5 million of this.
No. But I mean, they've only sold 3 million copies of Resident Evil 7.
Right. But it's like, I think if you make it look and play more like the original, the classic ones, you're going to get more people than following up on what Ninja Theory did. It just seems like obvious to me. Because even as someone who liked the Ninja Theory game, I will still get an old-style Devil May Cry game as well. So,
it appears to me that just Japanese action games in general are just having a real tough time in the market these days in the West.
Yeah, and I don't know why that is. I mean, they were never like giant, blockbusters, but Devil May Cry was one of the heavy hitters of the PS2 era.
It definitely was.
It got 3 sequels.
It built a brand off of that first game.
But some are like the Xbox 360 generation. A lot of those games just sort of fell off. Yeah. And I don't know if I've ever heard an adequate, really, explanation for why.
Because Bayonetta, even the first one, when it was released as a multi-platform game, did not sell amazing.
Oh, no.
It got sky-high review scores.
Oh, yeah, but it only got a sequel because Nintendo funded it.
Right.
So,
yep. And Sega had passed, and a couple other publishers had passed on it first. So, yeah, I think I would agree with you. One, the aesthetic. I prefer to go back to the old style. Financially, I mean, I guess I'm being a little selfish in this regard in that I want to play another one. So I'm going to say, yeah, go for it. Like, I think they'll make their money back, provided the game is
as long as they
moderately good.
Yeah, and as long as they keep the project sane.
On track,
on track and on budget, and understand how much you're going to sell. Don't Square Enix Tomb Raider this thing and think you're going to sell 10 million copies or something. Right. Like, you got to be realistic.
I think Capcom standards at this point
I think Capcom knows
pretty
what
low.
they're doing. Yeah.
Street Fighter V is not done great. No. I mean, really, none of Capcom's games for quite a while.
Street Fighter on the Switch did well.
Yeah, I mean, it was sold, what, like 500K or something?
I mean, I think it outsold I think its first month outsold Street Fighter V's first month.
It did. And that was a dirty port.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But, I mean, you look at all Capcom's franchises right now. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite did okay first month, disappeared off the charts after that.
And then they screwed up again. There's a big tournament coming up this weekend, and they dropped a new patch yesterday.
Oh, geez.
Or not yesterday? Was it maybe Tuesday or Wednesday? But, like, all the Justin Wong and all the pros are complaining on Twitter. It's like, we got 4 days to get used to how this new patch plays. You couldn't have waited until next week. And it's just like, yeah, exactly. Like, you're not thinking... The people that are keeping that game alive in whatever form it remains alive is the tournament scene.
Oh, it absolutely is.
And the pro scene. Yeah. And Capcom's just not thinking.
You don't want those people talking poorly about that game at this point.
No, it can't take it.
So that hasn't done well. Resident Evil 7, to me, sold way under expectations. I mean, Capcom seemed to be happy with 3 million sales from a Resident Evil game. That, to me, is...
How much did 6 sell?
Better than that, yeah. But I mean, that's when it still had some cachet. Like, I feel like Resident Evil, all these Japanese franchises are really starting to wear a little thin, I think, in the West. Why do you think that is, Matt? Do you think it's an cumulative effect where people feel like they've bought these games in the past, they haven't been as good as they had hoped they would be, and over time they've just decided to not even give them a chance?
I don't know. I don't really know what happens there. Like, because they're not what people wanted, or the majority of the audience that makes games super million sellers today are not people who were playing games when those games were popular. Like, if you don't have a sentimental attachment to Resident Evil, maybe you don't care that Resident Evil 7 came out.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, maybe if you do have a sentimental attachment to Resident Evil 7, you're annoyed that it's first person.
Right.
So you've got this problem with, like, kind of experimenting but failing to capitalize on what made the series, like, popular, maybe.
And the VR thing might have muddied the waters for that game as well.
Yeah, I mean...
People are like, wait, I can only play it with VR, right?
And there was just that period where, like, Western stuff went on the rise last generation, and Japanese companies seemed to struggle to provide the budget needed to keep things up to date in the HD era, and like even Square Enix kind of the things like, well, there's no more cities in JRPGs because they're too expensive to build, and it was like
what?
And then like Skyrim comes out and people are like,
they can afford it.
There's a lot of cities in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, the story even goes back to Metal Gear Solid 4, where Kojima wanted to do like a more open world sort of thing like that, and like more similar to like what 5 ended up being.
Yeah.
And his team told him it was impossible, and then he went to E3 and
saw
saw Assassin's Creed, and he came back and said, "You fuckers lied to me. They just did it." And that's why he can dress as in the Assassin's Creed robes, because they worked with Ubisoft to understand how it works. Done that.
Yeah.
And so there was just this element of, the industry went this way, and the Japanese development community sort of thought it was going to keep going this way, and it was almost.
And I think that's the problem. Keep going this way.
And it reminded me of. It actually reminded me of the Saturn, where the Saturn, when that came out, the Saturn was a 2D monster, a 2D powerhouse, like nothing that had been seen before, and then the PlayStation. It was shown,
polygons.
and it was 3D.
Right.
And suddenly Sega realized, oh, this is the future.
Yeah.
And they bolted a bunch of subpar 3D hardware onto the top of this 2D. I mean, the Saturn was a Super Genesis, basically. Yeah. And they bolted something on top of this thing to kind of, and it didn't match up, didn't work out. But it just felt like that thing where like you thought the future of games was just going to continue down this straight line, and it went this way.
Yeah.
And it went with online stuff, and it went with like multiplayer. Halo, the Xbox became a force that you didn't expect to do. Xbox Live became a success, and it took Sony years to catch up on that.
It's kind of like back when you were a kid, you were riding with your dad and your mom in the car, and your dad like makes a wrong turn, and then your mom is saying, "Hey, we need to get off the exit. Hey, we need to," and he just keeps staring straight ahead, just going straight past all the exits. And you're like, "Dad!"
He's like, "This is a shortcut. Trust me."
Yeah, exactly. That seems to be like what's going on, and not just with Capcom.
I think a lot of the Japanese companies have corrected course since then. But
you think a lot have?
I think they're getting there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, look, the Square Enix of the beginning of the 360 generation would not have made Final Fantasy X.
Square Enix has westernized far more than any other Japanese publisher. Far more than any. I mean, I would argue that Nintendo, at a certain point, had been pretty westernized, but now it's kind of gone back, and it's like, no, now we're making all our games in Japan again. Because for a while there, it had all those kind of little small second-party studios in America that were creating games for it, and then it ended up getting rid of all those or just canceling the projects that those teams were working on. And now almost all its games are made in Japan again. And I would also say that this is kind of bore out that Nintendo makes timeless games because it hasn't really changed its strategy at all. It still makes games the same way. Obviously, it westernized Zelda with Breath of the Wild a little bit, but it's games that can keep going down that highway without getting off the ramp, and it still does very well.
It did have to shift its approach a little bit, though.
Yeah.
Like in the hardware department more than the game department.
Yeah.
Because that was Nintendo's pitfall, is sort of reverse, where Nintendo's advantage is it has control over the hardware, whereas other companies are basically trying to make things for other people's hardware and hoping that they can make it fit properly. But like Nintendo's control of the hardware. But the problem what they had was their games were still there.
Yeah.
But nobody wanted the hardware.
Yeah.
And now they've flipped that story, and I think they've got their hardware and their software on the same page, and it's all going very well.
Yeah.
If you're Nintendo.
Let's shift focus to Soulcalibur. So that's the other rumor.
This is, I would say, a game we have not heard of in quite some time.
Yes. There have been no hints of a new one coming, which doesn't make any sense because Soulcalibur is a great franchise. I can't remember an entry in Soulcalibur that I was ultimately disappointed in.
I can.
Which one?
3.
3?
3 was not very good.
I don't even know if I remember anything specific about 3. Maybe
3
that's
was
the problem.
Yeah, well, 3 was PS2. It was the story kind of map mode thing was very pared down from what Soulcalibur 1 and 2 had done, and it also had a bug that erased your save.
Oh, well, there you go.
So, 3 for me is the least of the series.
Well,
there are people who would say the last one was the least because it had Star Wars characters in it, but I like that.
Was that the last one?
I think so.
No, I think there's one after that.
Is there another one after that?
Yeah, there's. Maybe that doesn't bode well for 5 then.
No, because 4 was.
This will be Soulcalibur 6, won't it?
Is it?
I think so.
Okay, here's the problem. It's been a while.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because 4 was...
That's what we're seeing right now, actually.
That's 6?
Yeah.
So 4 had the guest characters.
2 also had guest characters,
so
because it had Link and...
Yeah, Link and Spawn. Remember Spawn?
It's so weird.
And Heihachi.
Yeah.
And then 5
It had Master Chief.
Yeah.
It had Master Chief. What else did it have?
Well, wait, who had...
Darth Vader, Yoda.
Yeah. So that was 5.
Yeah.
4.
That was 4. Yeah, that was Soulcalibur 4.
Star Wars was 4.
Yep. And this is 5 we're seeing right here. So the
5.
new one will be 6.
Okay.
But here's the thing about Soulcalibur, though, is it's not like other fighting games because it's all weapon-based.
No, it doesn't really matter.
You don't think it matters?
No, it's basically Tekken with longer reach in a lot of ways. It's very similar to Tekken with a faster pace and a more fluid kind of combo system to me.
But the weapons do matter.
I
I mean, they give you range.
There's, you can just extend the range of a punch. There's characters in Tekken that have the same kind of range differentials that happen.
Some of the characters in Soulcalibur have a lot of range.
Oh yeah,
Some of the ones with like the chain.
Some of the characters in Tekken do too. Like it's just a hitbox. It doesn't really change anything. It's an aesthetic choice.
But you have to have a visual representation to fill out that hitbox.
Well, yeah,
you can't just create an invisible character. Like you have to have an appendage.
You can make it fire or an energy or something. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, it's all aesthetics. If you prefer the look of characters with weapons, Soulcalibur is going to be more appealing to you. But it doesn't actually physically change the gameplay. The gameplay is completely open to however you want to do it in a fighting game. So
I would disagree with that. I think there's a difference between Soulcalibur and Tekken, without a doubt.
There is a difference, but it has nothing to do with the weapons. It has to do with the speed and the fluidity of it. And you don't need weapons to do that.
You don't need them, but I think
that's what they've used in this case to represent that. But it's not key to it. It's just a difference between the series. I also miss the days when you could knock the weapon out of the guy's hand, which was in the original.
Yeah, I agree. They went away from that.
Actually, I think one of the reasons I was so mixed up on the numbers just now is I just remembered that like the first Soulcalibur is actually Soul Edge,
right?
And then Soulcalibur is actually Soul Edge 2, and then they started over with the numbers.
Yeah, and then at first it was 2 words Soulcalibur,
right?
And now it's just 1 word,
right? Because it's technically
stuff like that drives me crazy.
Because it's Excalibur,
right?
And because it says 1 word.
Yeah. And remember, did they make that weird like action adventure hack and slash for Wii?
Oh yeah.
What was that called? Soulcalibur. I can't remember.
Legends or something.
It was so bad though. It was so freaking terrible. So here we are, Soulcalibur 6. What would you like to see in it, Matt? And does it have a place now?
Probably not.
No.
Like in terms of like a tournament scene, nah. Like. Tekken hangs on there, but I don't think Soulcalibur has the cachet to do it.
Tekken's kind of on the fringe of the competitive fighting scene.
Yeah, it's out there on the outskirts, sort of out there with like Injustice and those games in it. Because like part of Tekken and Soul, like the Bamco fighters' problems is like they don't quite fit the anime fighter
at all
subgenre, and they don't quite fit the Western fighting genre, and like they sort of exist in their own world, and there's such a different skill set. And Virtua Fighter has this problem too. So I'm not like trying to bash Soulcalibur and Tekken. I'm just saying like they're a different take, and it's a different skill set, and people just don't feel like they want to like focus on that. They want to focus on the games that are more popular and thus have larger prize purses. So these games kind of live or die by who wants to play them together in their living rooms. And it just doesn't seem to be a genre that does that beyond a certain audience. I don't know if a new Soulcalibur is a tremendously wise idea.
I think fighting games in general right now are risky, in all honesty. I think that they're just not selling the way that they used to. And I think it's hard to ask $60 for a fighting game now, particularly one that hasn't been around now. I mean, Soulcalibur 6 was last gen, so it's been at least 5 years since the last one came out.
And I didn't play this one much. I found it kind of bleh.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, I don't know. I don't know if there's much left to do with this series. Like, are you ever going to make something better than Soulcalibur 2? Probably not.
Well, I think the games that sold best were 2 and 4. And those were the games that kind of had the gimmick, where you could fight as Link, or you could fight as Yoda, or you could fight as Spawn, or whatever. And it seemed like once it went back to, hey, here's our roster of guys, that's when it kind of started to bottom out.
I mean, that's part of the reason I don't remember a lot about the last one is like there just wasn't anything notable about it. Like there was nothing, even though I kind of thought putting the Star Wars characters in it was stupid.
Yeah.
Like at least it was an
identity. Link didn't make any sense either, but...
I like playing as Link.
Well, of course I like playing as him, but I mean, if you think about the universe of the game, it made zero sense that he was there. It made just as much sense as Star Wars or Spawn being there.
I just think there's no because games like Injustice, like the Warner Brothers games, Injustice and Mortal Kombat, they sell better than even Street Fighter 4. I mean, they're millions and millions of copies, but it's because they give you a ton of stuff to do single player.
Have a campaign
that gets you involved. Like there's characters that people have attachments to over the years. I don't feel like Soulcalibur has that.
What is the most iconic character from Soulcalibur? Valdo.
Probably Voldo. Like,
I mean, think about that.
Like meme-wise, probably. I mean, like to me,
or just like if someone says, "Name me a Soulcalibur character," who is it? Like that.
I would say Mitsurugi or Taki first because or Ivy. People know Ivy.
Ivy because she's hot.
She's got she's something. And she's got the coolest weapon.
Right.
She has the chainsword thing. And then you're kind of in like.
But think about that. That is what drives a fighting game, the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to name any iconic characters from Soulcalibur.
I mean, there's Killick.
Yeah.
You remember what weapon he uses? I used to use him, so I remember.
Was it a short sword?
No, he had a bow. He had
a
staff.
Yeah.
Sophistina. Sophicia.
I think you're illustrating my point perfectly.
And she was like the Greek sword and shield.
I remember her, yeah. She actually used a short sword, I believe.
Yeah, there's the nunchuck guy, and there's the Siegfried and Nightmare, obviously, the guys who corrupted by the sword. And
there you go.
And there's the Tonfa.
It's hard to be successful
girl.
With a character-driven game with no memorable characters.
There's the guy with an axe. Who's he? The big guy, the big like barbarian guy with the axe.
I don't remember. They just showed him right there. This is gonna drive me bonkers. We need to stop. I think the bottom line is it has an uphill climb to be a successful game.
Mm-hmm.
The new Soulcalibur, I believe. When Street Fighter V, which is a pretty good game, that has had all the promotion that it's had, all the tournament exposure it's had, it was on ESPN how many times in front of a more casual audience, and you still can't sell more than 3 million copies years and years later.
I think part of that is also that like the business model of Street Fighter V is alienating.
Yeah. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, presumably Soulcalibur would not do that. Because they didn't do that with Tekken 7.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Like
Tekken 7 sold around 1 million in the U.S. I think that's
maybe
last time I saw.
I haven't been keeping up with that.
And maybe that's enough for.
Maybe I don't know what the economics of kind of like mid-tier Japanese fighting games are.
I'm guessing the development costs of those games are pretty low.
Yeah, I mean in comparison.
Relatively
to
speaking.
Yeah. Comparisons to a Battlefront. Yeah.
Or even comparison to like Injustice. Like I think Injustice's budget is probably way bigger than the budget for pretty much any Japanese fighting game. So we'll see. PSX is coming up soon. It's December 10th. Is that right? Just like a couple days after the Game Awards.
Right around the Game Awards. Yeah. That sounds right.
We're gonna get that double whammy coming up here soon, folks. By the way, we're gonna get the Game Awards and PSX with which both are known for at this point for debuting games. And
I'm certainly not known for awards.
No. And that's a perfect segue into our next topic, which is the Game Awards 2017. So yesterday, Jeff Keighley put out the nominees for the Game Awards. I will say that it was the most discussed topic on SIFTD in the last month. As far as just stuff that we curate to the site that gets the users generating conversation, it had the most comments of any piece of curated content from the last month. And I think what seems to be generating the most controversy and discussion is the fact that PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds has been nominated for multiple awards at the Game Awards. It's a slippery slope. One thing you got to remember with the Game Awards is any game released in December, I believe, is not eligible.
Yeah, November 23rd or something is the cutoff usually, I think.
Yeah, so any game in December doesn't count. So while it is officially releasing this year on Xbox...
Yeah, because let's not forget, that was why Last Guardian didn't get nominated last year for anything. And didn't get nominated this year for anything because nobody remembers it.
Yeah.
Also, it wasn't really that good.
It probably doesn't deserve it. I mean, this year has been so amazing.
I mean, the animation of that character was really good.
Yeah, maybe it deserves an art nod at least. But you're right, people have completely forgotten about it, and it didn't sell well, and it didn't do great with critics, really. So I can kind of see why it's fallen by the wayside. But PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds will be coming out for Xbox One here in just a few weeks, actually. I was pretty surprised to see that it was coming out in early December. It's been in early access on PC pretty much most of this year. But people are in an uproar over this game getting nominated for awards, saying that because it's technically in early access that it shouldn't deserve to get nominations or win any awards. How do you feel about that whole discussion, Matt?
No, I agree with that. If it's not out yet, it doesn't get nominated. But it's such a phenomenon that I understand that they want to capitalize on it to get interest going.
But you say it's not out yet, but it is out.
It's not out until it's released.
You can pay money for it and buy it and play it.
Early access, not out.
But isn't that just like, as the screen says, semantics?
No, because by that rationale, Star Citizen's out.
Is it playable?
Yeah, it's been playable for 2 years. You can go on and play the hangar and fly around and shoot at people and do the whole thing. You just play like a basic version of the game. It's early access.
But is there any structure to the game?
Or is there structure to this game?
Well, yeah, there is.
It's a multiplayer game.
Mode.
It's a multiplayer. It's the multiplayer mode of Star Citizen. That's what's up.
Oh, so Star Citizen does have like multiplayer.
That's the whole point. Like there's the Squadron 42, which is the single-player Wing Commander-style campaign, but Star Citizen itself is the open multiplayer game.
Right, and that all works now.
I mean, it doesn't work to the scale that like it's supposed to in the final, but you can get in your certain ships, and fly around and shoot at people and do the whole thing.
And there's like consequences and like the whole structure of the game is there.
It's like it's more like kind of a one-off multiplayer kind of thing. So it's more like a multiplayer like arena, I would say. So it's not like if your ship gets blown up, you got to go get insurance and replace it with in-game money and shit. Like that'll be part of the
But there are
game.
Goals and
you can
accomplish. You can accomplish missions and
they're like I think they're a little like you can do cargo stuff and stuff. I think I haven't played it in like almost.
But
a year.
I think you agree with me that PUBG is a game. It's not like this
but
weird
it's
thing
early.
you can run around in.
If it's done, if it's out. Why isn't it 1.0? Like, that's what early access means.
But isn't that a semantic, too, though? Just saying if it's 0.9, it's not 1.0.
No, that's development. I mean, that's what numbers mean. I mean, if I owe you $100,000 and I give you $90,000 instead, you're not going to feel like I paid you back. Like, that 0.1 matters.
I don't think that's an apt comparison, though.
Well, but I'm saying the 0.1 matters. Like, that, that's presumably... There's a reason they haven't stuck that 1 in front of the decimal point. I just think it's interesting that the argument seems to shift to the point where people argue against early access. Like, you can't sell me a game that's not finished, that early access is wrong or whatever. And then as soon as
no game's finished anymore.
And as soon as a game that comes out that's really good in early access, someone's like, oh, well, it should get nominated.
But see, that's the thing, though. No game is finished anymore. Every game, when it's released, regardless of what number they put behind it, I mean, look, the fact of the matter is, most people who buy games have no idea that this is not 1.0. They don't know. They just know they can buy PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and play it and have a blast playing it. And if you look at the way the games work now, no game's ever done. Every game comes out and then it's just patched over and over and over again. And you wouldn't even know if they were patched. Like, some games will actually put the dinky little, like, version number up there. Like, Call of Duty actually does that. But most games don't even do that. So outwardly, to most consumers, all they know is they can buy the game and play the game, and it works. And I think to the average consumer, that game is quote-unquote out.
Well, I would argue that, A, the Game Awards are not for the average consumer. B, the people organizing the Game Awards should know better than the average consumer. And C, it doesn't really matter because no one cares.
It's not going. Well, I think it does. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because it's not going to win anything.
I think it might win. Like if there's like a player, like a public award, like a
best
voting
player,
thing.
best PUBG game of 2017.
Well, no, I think it might win if you're putting it up for voting, and if there's a voting award, of audience choice or something. I bet that's where it would win.
I don't know if I think there's just like one category for user votes. The rest.
Well, I've been voting on the little website thing for everything. I don't know.
Really?
And I think I don't know if that's because I don't think that's how they determine. But I think there's be like an audience choice.
Wait, so it's all determined by voting?
I have no idea, but there's a website where you can vote for your pick on each category, and
all of them.
I think every day you can do it.
Oh wow. Oh jeez.
And I think I don't think that's how they're determining who wins, but I think there might be an audience, kind of a Rotten Tomatoes score and an audience tomato meter thing. I think they might be doing something like that. I don't know.
Putting it in the hands of the fans is a huge mistake that Jeff Keighley should have learned from, because when we did the Spike Video Game Awards, we would give one award to fans every year, and it would undoubtedly become an unmitigated disaster. Like, Madden would win, like, everything. Like, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Like, it would win Best Graphics, like, Game of the Year, like, everything.
Well, because like when you do that, you're opening it up to whatever sold the most.
Yeah. Or whatever.
And that's this game.
Or whatever game has the biggest social media following, essentially.
Right.
It's just like the influencer of the year,
or whatever group's willing to it's like the GameFact character contest where Zelda wins every year,
right?
Because the Nintendo fans organized.
I forgot about those. Do they still do those?
Yeah, they still do. There was a controversy last year where someone other than Zelda won.
Oh, really?
Yeah. God, what game was it?
Wait, is it Zelda or Link that wins?
Link. It was games. So it was Ocarina. Ocarina usually won.
Right.
And
I've also seen other websites. I think Screw Attack does like character battle things now.
Yeah, I can't remember, but I can't remember. Like there was, Undertale. The Undertale fandom organized and made Undertale win the game battle on GameFax last year or something.
I mean, it's so easy to manipulate
because Ocarina always wins, and there were people furious that Ocarina didn't win because it was I remember reading a post where somebody was like, it's like a holiday tradition or something that Ocarina wins this, and now my whole month is ruined. And it was so apparently for some people this was just a yearly affirmation that Ocarina of Time was the best game ever made. And I'm like, well, that seems to defeat the purpose of the whole thing, right?
Yeah. But I don't think PUBG is going to win anything, man, because most people have played this while it's been very... I mean, they're just now getting vaulting into the game.
Look, all I'll say... so it's not finished, is what you're saying. You can't vault
stuff. It's not finished.
Yeah.
But and I said, no game is ever finished these days. They're constantly being updated.
Usually vaulting's in the game by the time it comes out at retail.
Well, it sounds like his original design doc, he didn't even want to have vaulting in it, and he listened to player complaints and then decided to put it in.
What a weird thing to not put in a post-San Andreas world.
Well, we can talk about another game here in a little bit that doesn't have vaulting in it.
True. True.
That has a much bigger budget.
Leap. Yeah. That's what jetpacks are for, right?
Yeah.
All I will say is, okay, so fine, you want to cheat the early access thing. Maybe you beat it by 3 weeks. It's not that big a deal, I guess. But this thing better not be nominated for anything next year.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree with
that.
They
got it.
It's
got
for sure. I mean, yeah.
And that's kind of the downside for fans of the game and maybe for the game itself is once it's done, once it's available on consoles at retail where you can see it in Walmart and buy it there, and it'll improve and having added stuff and refinement and polish, I bet it would have a better shot at winning some of these categories.
It would. Well, even
I feel like this is jumping the gun in the name of getting people to watch.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Well, PlayerUnknown himself came out this week and said, I don't want it to win anything.
How do you know it's him?
Well, because people now know who PlayerUnknown is.
It's all upside down.
It's all of us. But he came out and said, I totally understand if it doesn't win anything. I don't think it should win anything, blah, blah, blah. So he kind of let everybody off the hook with his statement, so to speak. But, I mean, it is...
He's like, if you need me, I'll just be throwing cash in the air.
Yeah. And I do agree with your point. It's like, and maybe he's trying to say, look, I want to wait till the game is better for you to consider it for awards. Yeah. Because he probably knows his chances...
knows a year from now it's going to look
it'll have a much better chance of winning an award than it would right now. So there's all kinds of weird things going on here. And you're absolutely right. I believe PUBG is a big story. It won't be next year. So Keighley is trying to, basically trampoline off of that to get more promotion for the show. I'm sure he knew. Keighley's a really smart guy. He knew this was going to be controversial.
Yeah.
He
It's the
knew
correct marketing choice.
it totally is. He knew putting it in there was going to do stuff like it did on SIFTD, where we have the most comments of any story in the month from anything curated, and it's happening all over the place. We're talking about it on GameFace right now. We're showing the Game Awards logo running on our show right now.
Yeah.
It's all a part of the master plan.
Yeah, we've gotten that award logo out to dozens more people. Dozens.
But do you think eventually it goes up on the site, people watch the archive, and then it goes on YouTube, and there's thousands of people now who will know about the Game Awards who may not have known, or maybe they knew it was coming, they didn't know what the date was.
Or it was one of those things where you're like, oh, right, well, it's time for that again.
But you got to remember, we're just one show out of hundreds of shows.
Yeah, and everyone will be talking about it.
Right, I mean, it's going to work.
Right, it's like I said, it's the right marketing choice.
Ultimately. And I'm actually kind of surprised that PlayerUnknown didn't reach out to Jeff and be like, hey, try to lobby a little bit and say, I'd prefer if you could hold this till next year.
Because I think he'd agree with me that it's not out yet.
Oh, yeah, because he knows it's going to get better.
Yeah.
And a year from now, it will be a much better game.
I feel like even if the furor over it dies down over the next year, I feel like it's not going to be Last Guardian style forgotten next December.
Yeah.
It's still going to be
it's a multiplayer game, so people will still be playing it and still be talking. It appears that they're going to keep improving it, so... I mean, it'll be a much better game this time next year. Will it get nominations? Probably not, because by then there'll probably be 5 more clones of PUBG.
And maybe one of those will get nominated.
It's possible.
And win.
It's possible.
And then it'll start all over again.
Yeah. And then the final thing I wanted to talk about with the Game Awards is the Live Game Award. Basically, Best Game as a Service Award.
Oh, the ongoing game or whatever it was thing? Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Sure. I don't care.
How do you even classify that to say whether a game belongs in that category or it doesn't, though?
Whatever is most marketing friendly, I guess. Because look, technically that could be World of Warcraft or Hearthstone or
right.
Frickin' EverQuest is still running.
And look, what are the parameters for that? Did it have to come out this year? Then how do you even know it's a live game if it's only been around for 5 months?
Yeah.
I mean, that award to me just seems... What?
I think it's because those games have very large audiences, and it's a good way to try to get those audiences interested in watching the show.
So does that mean that, Rainbow Six Siege was eligible last year, and now it's eligible this year, and now it'll be eligible next year?
How does
that work?
I don't know. The answer probably comes down to how much Ubisoft is willing to put into the premieres.
I mean,
look, this show is about getting people to watch by teasing them with premieres and reveals, and the awards are basically incidental.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And I'm just wondering...
We're not impugning the purity of the frickin' Nobel Prize here. We're basically it's a giant commercial.
Yeah.
And whatever you need to put in those awards categories to get those people to watch the commercial, that's what you got to do.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if there's some other stuff going on behind the scenes here.
Yeah, I mean, they do. He did say that it's the most premieres of any Game Awards so far. And the most I think they've had before was 12 or 13.
Last year was pretty disappointing on that front, though.
But you go back to, I think, 3 years, and they had 13 reveals, I think. So it'd be 13 or 14 new trailers and reveals of new games and stuff.
Here's the thing, though. The number doesn't mean that much to me.
Well, no, because 10 of those could be games you don't care about.
Which is pretty much what happened last year.
Right.
I mean, most of the premieres, at the end, I was like, really, Jeff? You gave these people time in your show for this? And only so he could say, we have X many. And so you can come on a show like this and say, there's more this year. There's 15 this year instead of the 12 that we had, or whatever.
And this is why people turn televisions off.
No, you're right.
Because the marketing wheels within wheels.
Because that is a problem, though. Because if you need eyeballs for a show like this, he has sponsors and things like that. He needs eyeballs. I don't know if you look at the overall good of the show, having a bunch of third-rate, quote-unquote, exclusives in the show ultimately is a good idea. It may get people to show up and watch the first hour of your show, but by hour 2, they're going to start tuning out when they start to realize, hey, all these premieres actually aren't all that big.
No, they won't tune out, though, because they'll be like, well, the big one must be last.
Or
saving the big ones.
Or the show itself will keep saying, and we're going to see the first footage of Death Stranding, and that's exactly what we're going to see this year.
Of course we're going to see it. If there's one thing you can bet we'll see, it's going to be some Death Stranding.
There's going to be some gameplay of some Death Stranding.
Going to be some Death Stranding, and there's going to be something from Nintendo.
Well, it's funny because it's so obvious that Keighley and Kojima have a bromance.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not even like he tries to hide it
no.
or
The man cried on stage.
Yeah, or
about
he
it.
even like tries to like crack jokes about it and have levity about it. Like, I don't know if you saw, like, go back, Sam, and show like this year's nominee. The first thing they show in their trailer is Kojima walking up on stage, and him and Jeff embrace. It's just crazy. So you know, Death Stranding is going to be the first gameplay is going to be shown.
He has really good relationships with Kojima and Nintendo, so you can expect something from. I don't think people are saying Metroid Prime. I don't think that's going to happen, but like there'll be something from Nintendo. Maybe the premiere of the Zelda DLC
or the Donkey Kong game.
Donkey Kong game could be.
I mean, Reggie's already been hinting at that, and you know there are rumors that Metroid. I don't know if you've heard this or not. There are rumors that Metroid Prime 4 is being created by Bandai Namco.
Wow.
Have you heard that?
I had not heard that.
Yeah, that rumor.
I don't like hearing that.
That rumor is swirling around right now.
Well, I guess the Remember Me people got to do something. Or was
Take that with a huge grain of salt, by the way. Do not quote me on that. If that's not
true, that would be a very weird move.
I'm just telling you what I've been hearing over the last couple weeks through various conversations I've had. So,
although it would mean that Samus might end up in Soulcalibur VI.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Well, if you remember, Bandai Namco made a Star Fox game, Star Fox Assault, which is was that weird like on-foot shooter where they all had like rocket launchers or whatever. So it wouldn't be the first time that they've had this relationship. But I have heard that.
But after that Star Fox game, you'd think it would be the last.
Yeah, because it was terrible.
It was not good.
It was really terrible. And I've heard that from more than one person. So just put it out there. Take it with a huge grain of salt. That's that's kind of the rumors that are making the rounds right now. So.
But I have heard. I haven't heard the Bandai Namco thing, but I did hear Metroid Prime 4's premiere stuff is going to be in the Direct in January.
Okay.
So.
Well, so I don't think we'll see Metroid Prime at the Game Awards.
I don't think so. I would like to.
But I think Retro's new game maybe. Because if Retro's not making Metroid...
Yeah, it feels like Donkey Kong is about the level of bone they would throw to Jeff.
It also would be so disappointing if Retro was making a Donkey Kong game. But... I digress.
Can something be disappointing and expected at the same time?
Yes,
I guess it can.
Yes, it can. Absolutely, it can. So
you're disappointed. It's what you expect.
Yeah. So anyway, back onto the Games as a Service award. I have a feeling that some of
what's the criteria for that?
That's what I'm saying.
Is it the best game, or is it the best service,
or is it the best game that the service continues forever? Like, how do you determine?
I don't know what the criteria are.
I don't get it either. But are you going to go to the Game Awards?
No.
No.
I'll watch them.
I just got an email for an invite.
I don't think I got an email. I have gone a couple times, but I think I took your invite for it or something.
You did take my invite one time. The last time I went, I did not go last year because I had something else going on that I couldn't go to. But I went the year before, and I just didn't really have fun, to be perfectly honest with you. The show takes a long time to tape, and the audience was like really empty.
Yeah.
And like I ended up sitting with like this PR person I've known for a long time, and like you couldn't even really talk because obviously the show's going on, and there's just all this downtime and the typical TV stuff where they try to get the audience riled up, and then I went to the after party, and it was this weird thing where there was like a VIP area, and everybody was in the VIP area, so the whole rest of the party was like lame. Like, I don't know. I just didn't have that much fun, and then last year I couldn't go at all, so I'm really kind of teetering on whether I'm going to go
this
this
kind of things I tend to find, and maybe, I don't know if it's me getting old or if it's me just having been to too many of these things, but a lot of times I feel like you get a better experience just watching the stream.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of sports are that way now.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, even hardcore NFL fans will say, like, oh, if you get a game I care about, I'm going to watch it at home.
Yeah. I don't know if you probably didn't watch the game last night, but they just debuted this new Skycam thing that makes it look like you're playing Madden when you watch an NFL
Oh, yeah,
game.
I saw some, because I was at City Walk for Justice League, and they, on that big giant screen by the theater, they were playing the game.
I freaking love it. I love it. And the whole internet hated it.
Because I thought it was like a game trailer for it. So I'm like, why are they showing Madden? Oh, that's the actual football game.
I thought it was incredible. But you're right. Going back to what we're actually talking about, a lot of times it is better to just watch it on a nice TV.
And also because like there's points during when I went to the Game Awards, there were points where I'm like, man, I wish I could do something else for a while. It's like I can multitask while.
But it's a problem because they do crowd shots all the time, and you don't want to be the guy. And Jeff knows us, so if we're like in the crowd, like looking at our cell phones when they do a crowd shot, it's not a good look. So I don't know. We'll see. But man, last time I went, the seats were half empty.
Yeah, they've always been like that.
The very first one was pretty crowded, but it seems to have gone down.
The first one was like everybody I knew went. Everybody went, and then like the next year, I'm like, oh, I was going to the game. I was like, they're like, no.
Then it was a few more, and and then last year I went. It was literally. I don't know how they probably couldn't do the crowd shots in a way that made it look.
Well, I think
right,
we said last year like he needs to get a smaller venue.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it the same place
again?
again?
I think it is. Yeah. I didn't even look at the invite yet.
A smaller venue would make it look more packed and make it look like more of a, Yeah. I mean, even like the Oscars have a pretty small theater when you get down to it. I mean, vertically it's tall, but like when you just look at the floor, like it's not that many seats, and and that's fine. It's better to have it look packed than to have it look big.
For sure. Without a doubt. And you can be smart with how you place your cameras and all that kind of stuff.
That shot looks good.
This is from like 3 years ago, I think. This is old B-roll. This isn't from last year. Well, I guess this is Overwatch winning something. So it's what, 2 years old?
Overwatch?
Yeah.
It'd been last year.
So this is last year's B-roll, then. Yeah. So anyway, I wish Keely luck. I mean, he goes out on a huge limb to create this. He's spending a lot of his own money to do it.
I mean, clearly it's something he believes in and is a labor of love.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, and I have lots of friends who work on the production with him as well. So, a lot of people that I care about are working on this. So I wish him the best.
Yeah. But like sometimes labors of love come, crash headlong into the realities of,
I've been dealing with that
and
for the last 2 years. Trying to make money off SIFTD, so I totally get it, and I wish him luck, and I hope that they do well. But December 7th, I believe it is. Is that a Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
I want to say that's a Thursday.
I can figure that out real quick.
Thursday, yeah.
Is it a Thursday?
I think
probably because renting that space would be really expensive on the weekends. The 7th is Thursday. Yeah. Yep.
Fun.
So good luck. Thursday, December 7th. I think it's streaming in 4K as well. So if those of you, the 13%ers who have 4K TVs, you'll actually be able to. And I think all the trailers are running in 4K as well, which is great that he's getting out ahead of it and actually giving people some content for their 4K environment. So there you go. December 7th, Thursday night, the Game Awards. So move on. We're going to talk next about the NPD report. Matt, I brought you in a sheet there that has a rundown of the NPD if you want to look at it.
Did you?
Yeah, there should be one over there.
No.
Sam, I think maybe Sam has it.
I put my gum on it.
Put your gum on it?
See what happens? I try to prepare. I have documentation for Matt, and Sam puts his gum on it. There you go.
Hole where the gum used to be. That's excellent.
So October NPD came out. Nintendo completely dominated, by the way. I mean, dominated. The Switch and the SNES Classic were the two top-selling pieces of hardware.
Winter Mint?
I can smell it from here. That's so nasty. Nintendo dominated October. The Switch and the SNES Classic, the two top-selling pieces of hardware in the U.S. for that month. PlayStation 4 has still outsold Switch overall for 2017, but it's pretty freaking close. Switch has destroyed Xbox in 2017. Overall sales down 11% year over year.
Wow, that was already a low year last year.
Right. And so you have hardware that actually sold better this month year over year. Software way down.
And this is physical copies only.
So you can see on the list that you're looking at, the ones with the asterisks are the ones that did not include digital.
Okay.
But all the other ones did. Because now MPD is starting to include digital sales.
Looks like mostly Switch.
Nintendo. Yeah, Nintendo doesn't give MPD its digital sales numbers.
I would think Switch sales are strongly physical still, though. I would think that would, I've certainly not bought any digital. All the Switch games I've bought have been the cartridge.
Every game I buy retail. I don't buy any digital, but every game that's sent to me for evaluation is code.
If I buy something that's heavily multiplayer focused, I will usually buy digital. Like if I was going to buy Splatoon 2, I would get that digitally because I just don't have to swap discs and stuff out to play a quick round of something.
How silly is it though that if you buy a game digitally, you don't need a disc, but if you have the retail version, you have to have the disc?
Yeah, well, we shut that down when Microsoft tried to solve that problem. So by adding more problems, but People like to be able to resell that disc, and if you do that, you have to have a way to make sure the disc still is in there, because otherwise you don't own the game anymore.
But shouldn't it have like some kind of an authentication saying it's been installed here? Like how when digital, there's got to be some kind of a handshake that's going on.
Yeah, but then like that's basically the handshake that was supposed to be existing on the Xbox One, and people freaked out.
Right.
So because
when can we have nice things?
Well, because if you do that, then you can't let it install on any other Xbox. Otherwise,
Right.
if you get, you can just install it on yours and play it whenever you want, and I can take your disc, install it on mine, play it whenever I want. Like that, you have to have a digital signature in there, and that was the thing that the Xbox One was going to do, and everybody freaked out about. So
Right.
that's why we don't have that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why you got to put a disc in, and some people would prefer to have to put a disc in than to lose the value on their game that way.
Yeah. So software is down way more than 11% year over year, because the 11% takes into account the fact that it was a great month for hardware, and overall sales still down 11%. Now, one thing I will say is, I don't have this on here, is that peripheral sales were way down year over year, because last year there was a couple driving games that were released in October that people bought a bunch of wheels for.
Okay.
But otherwise, this is a huge dip downwards. Let's start going through the top 20 game sales across all platforms. Number 1, Middle-earth: Shadow of War. Are you surprised by that at all, Matt?
Nope.
You're not?
Nope. First game sold real well. First game was real well received.
It sold the first game almost double already.
Second game looked even better. So it's also, like, if you were wondering how many people care about loot boxes, that many. Almost nobody.
Nobody.
Yeah. It didn't stop anyone from buying that game.
No. And there was a lot of controversy around that game.
Almost
as much as the game that we're going to talk about next.
Actually, I would say less.
Yeah.
I think Star Wars Battlefront was a bigger controversy because people know Star Wars.
Right.
The Middle Earth thing didn't hit CNN.
No, you're right.
So, it's and also Shadow of War. While the last act is a giant grind if you don't buy the loot boxes.
Yeah.
If you enjoy playing the game, that's not a problem.
Right.
And really, it's over at that point. So the loot boxes never factor into whether or not you can continue playing the game. Unlike, say, Need for Speed, where you either repeat those races over and over again, or you can't progress in the story. That doesn't happen in Shadow of War.
Right.
Because I think Warner Brothers has kind of figured out a way to put the loot boxes in that game and Injustice 2 without feeling like it's forcing you to buy something to progress. I think that's the key. If you have to put them in there, and I'd prefer you didn't, but if you have to put them in there, make them optional for the impatient, as opposed to required for the people who want to get something done.
Yeah.
And Shadow of War, it was unobtrusive enough, I guess, that it didn't freak people out in the mainstream and didn't become a major sticking point.
I'm surprised Shadow of War came in first.
I mean, I might be more surprised if it was up against stronger competition, or if the Switch had...
Some pretty stiff competition.
The stiff competition is on the Switch, and the Switch doesn't have enough units installed to if this was like 4 years into the Switch's life, I don't think Middle-earth would have outsold Mario.
Well, one thing we should keep in mind, too,
also,
is
it was like
Middle-earth was there all month.
Right, and like Mario, Assassin's Creed, and Wolfenstein were all 4 days before the end of the month.
Yeah.
So this is 4 days for Mario.
Yeah.
And Assassin's Creed also doing well.
Yep. So second place, Assassin's Creed Origins. A huge rebound for the franchise.
Oh, yeah.
I have got to say, Matt, I don't like it.
No?
No. I got about 12 hours in, and I really have no interest in playing it anymore. I got bored by it.
I haven't played it recently because I got sidetracked by Battlefront this week, obviously. But
I don't think it's a bad game, and I think it's definitely better than Unity, if only for technically it's so much better. But I think story-wise, I made like Syndicate better, and the characters, like the story in this game takes forever to get going, and then even when it does, it's just not all that interesting.
Oh, it's a slow burn. I also think they actually hacked it up to make it start faster, believe it or not. I think there's like the in media res thing that happens here. I think originally you played through like his idyllic early life and had to go I think they cut it way up to start with the open world and like gives you all the flashback stuff. I actually do like Bayek as a character. There's a lot of funny stuff in this game, mostly in the side quests. Like he's got that same kind of like tired professionalism that I like in Geralt in Witcher 3. Like
I get that vibe from him too, definitely.
And he deals with a few idiots where he's just like, fine, whatever you want me to do, we'll do it. Because his job is kind of like an all-around sort of fix-it man sort of thing. Like he just solves problems for people. I've played it for like 50 some hours, and I will go back and finish it. No question. I think it's really good.
Yeah, I haven't really enjoyed it, man.
And it's not about the story. So, I mean, I like Bayek and I like kind of the stuff that's happening here, but it's more about the setting and the historical areas and.
That's what kept me going for like 12 hours until once I had kind of seen I didn't see everything. I haven't unlocked all the territories or anything.
Neither have I.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm 50 in.
But once I had kind of hung out in Egypt for 10 or 12 hours, I was like, I kind of get the gist of it. And like, there was just, I don't like the combat either. Like, you know, they took out like the counter kills, but the combat just still feels kind of clunky to me.
Combat's a lateral move at best.
Yeah.
It's not what it should be. I feel like they need some more iteration on that.
And I just thought a lot of the characters that I met, I just didn't care about, and everybody just seemed so anonymous in the game, and the missions started getting repetitive almost right away. It was like, go here and kill this guy, or find this thing. You have to kill all these guys and then find this thing, and I don't know.
Like I said,
it could get way better on down the road, but I got to this point where an inflection point, basically, where I was like, okay, I'm 12 hours in. I do need to start playing other stuff so I can talk about it on GameFace and do other content around it. But with games that really hit me, I'll stick with them. And I'll kind of sacrifice that time. And this game, I just, at that certain point, I was just like, I gotta go. I gotta move on.
It's a slow burn. There's no question about that. I mean, the setting does a lot to keep me going on it. If it was set in like Assyria or something, maybe I wouldn't still be playing it. But I think ancient Egypt is one of my key points. And I really like digging into tombs and crawling around and figuring out the little puzzles in there. I really like it, and I don't know if I like it character and story wise as much as I like Syndicate, because I really like the characters in Syndicate.
I really do too.
And I think the combat is needs work. I think they've got the structure there, though. I think they've aped The Witcher 3 enough that I think they've got the bones of something to hang something really good on.
I agree with that.
And this might not be necessarily it, but like it's riding on its setting, and that's okay. But the next one they make has got to be gripping. The next one they make has got to grab hold of you and not let go, no matter. I don't care where it's set. You got to hit me with writing on the level of what The Witcher 3 hands over.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, the game is called Origins. So the game to me is all about the origins of the Assassins and the Templars, and it does kind of introduce that stuff like right at the beginning. But then I just felt like it just went away and was gone for too long. That you don't have enough interaction with like a main antagonist, and which is one of my biggest pet peeves in video games.
Well, the early thing here is like, because I don't know how many people you've killed, like main targets.
Like 5, I think.
So
6.
like, have you gotten to the second tier of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, as you sort of uncover who's at the head of this, it all comes together. It does sort of have, and I'm not done with it, the main story by any means, but it does have that thing that games tend to have these days where the story is really kind of Act 1. Like, the story is not a 3-act structure. The story sort of spends its whole running time establishing a premise, and the cliffhanger is almost like, I don't know if there's a cliffhanger in this game because I haven't finished it, but the cliffhanger on a lot of games, Halo 5 did this too, where like, the cliffhanger is like the end of Act 1. It's like, and now the story is going to start. And it's like, what? Like, that's not a story. You didn't tell me a story. You told me a setup. And I have a feeling that's where this game is going. So I understand what you're talking about. I just find the moment-to-moment gameplay in terms of exploration and running around and seeing Egypt to be really... it pulls me in. I like it.
I'll say one thing. Anyone who buys it, you're going to get a ton of value out of it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
it's huge.
And look, a lot of people aren't like me. They don't need to move on to some other game to play. So I think a lot of people, if they buy this, ultimately they're going to be like, wow, like I could play this for like the next 70 hours or whatever and not finish it 100%. I think someone tweeted me yesterday they got a platinum and 97%ed it, and it was like 60 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm taking my damn time. So 50 hours in, I'm nowhere near 100% complete, but I do have like all the collectibles, and I'm like 5 skills away from being fully upgraded, and like I've been grinding all the crafting stuff, and I like running around doing like brainless open world stuff while I listen to podcasts and stuff in this game.
I can see
like
that.
it's a nice pastime, you know. I dig it. I'm glad it sold well. I'd like to see them keep trying on this version of the franchise.
I agree.
So I think like,
look, it's the right step. They made the right step towards the future of the franchise, but it just hasn't caught me and got me caught up in.
Well, I think it really comes down to like the way that like people talk about the side quests in The Witcher 3 with as much memory and fervor as they do with the main stories.
Yeah.
And there's even I saw a thread where on Twitter where people were saying like, what are the best side quests in The Witcher 3? And people were naming things and they're like, I think that's the main story. And I go, I thought that was a side quest. I think no, that side quest.
You can't tell.
And you can't tell. Like there's stories that are told in the side quests of The Witcher 3 that are as good as the main story of most games.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of level of storytelling that Assassin's Creed needs to aspire to if they are going to adopt this structure.
Yeah.
And Origins, I don't think hits that.
But regardless, it sold really well in its
did.
first month. But we'll see if like
It was
word
first
of mouth.
4 days.
Yeah, first 4 days. And we'll see if word of mouth is ultimately shares my opinion or whether it shares other opinions.
It would be a good
and
Christmas.
It will keep selling very well.
It would be a good Christmas gift game just because it's like, here, 70 hours.
Yeah,
Like,
no, you're absolutely right.
Like,
and it's the type of gift you buy somebody and you talk to them like 6 months later, they're like, hey.
yeah, still playing it.
Thank you.
Lasted me to my birthday.
Like,
you know?
it lasted me like half the year or whatever. So you're right. It is kind of one of those things that'll keep on giving. But it'll be interesting to see if it has legs. Because even Syndicate sold okay the first month, and then it kind of fell off a cliff. So we'll see how it goes. Third place for October, after just a couple days, Super Mario Odyssey. No surprise there.
Probably only limited by the number of copies available.
Yeah.
Really.
And, you're right. And its install base, obviously, is competing on a kind of a different scale from the other platforms.
Like, I would bet because that's one of the starred ones, so it's not including digital sales. You include digital sales, I bet that was number one.
It is going to be the top-selling game for November, I'm guessing. Except for maybe Battlefront.
I feel like if I had to put money on it, I'd say Mario.
Yeah. It'll be close, I think. But I think Mario will probably win it. Because its Metacritic average is at, what, like 94 or 95 or something like that?
I mean, unless, like, even... Because also remember, I think November sales will include a lot of Christmas shopping.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to be on a lot of Christmas lists. I feel like that's going to be a factor as well. And I think Mario is going to do real well there.
Fourth place, South Park: The Fractured Butthole. I'm surprised to see that come in at fourth.
I don't know. Like, South Park has a real built-in audience in the first game.
I think a lot of people just bought it. Like, didn't read any reviews. Were just like, I'm just buying it, period.
Yeah, it would not surprise me.
And that was out for a bit longer. And then in fifth place, NBA 2K18, Matt. NBA 2K18, I believe, has now become the second best-selling game of 2017, behind Destiny 2. Isn't that crazy?
All right.
It's huge. Like, it's mind-blowing how big a basketball franchise can be.
Yeah, even with all the microtransaction stuff.
Yep. And then the rest of the list is pretty much all the usual suspects. WWE 2K18 comes in 7th. FIFA 18 was 6th. Madden was 8th. Destiny 2 at 9th. Still staying inside the top 10. Does not include digital for Destiny. Forza Motorsport 7. That's a debut, isn't it? At 10th? 10th.
10th for the big Xbox One X.
Exclusive for Q4.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it came out before that. But that was most of October it had there. It was the beginning of October, so that was a whole month's worth of sales there.
It beats Gran Turismo Sport, which comes in at 11.
Which had less time, but...
It did. That game, there is no discussion about Gran Turismo Sport. No one even has reviewed the game. I think we have 1 or 2 reviews curated on SIFTD for GT Sport at this point. Think about that.
I did ask one of my friends, who's like a hardcore racing person, like, she owns all the wheels, she does all the things, and asked, like, are you going to get GT Sport? And they're like, why would you? It was like a laugh. People laugh at me when I ask if
I know it's a huge game, so that's probably keeping the reviews from going up right away. But this game's now been out for like 3 weeks. Like,
but all the racing fans I know is like, I mean, they're not super enchanted and enthusiastic about Forza 7. But I'm like, what about GT Sport? And they're like, like they don't even give it a chance anymore.
It's crazy.
It's not even on their list.
Evil Within 2, 13.
Not tops.
It's not good. Here's the real depressing one. Wolfenstein 2 at 14.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was 4 days. But,
Still, though.
Well, it was never going to sell Mario levels, but, like, it seems like maybe it's doing... I mean, Evil Within did not chart very well in the UK when it came out.
Yeah.
And if it's not Elder Scrolls, it feels like Bethesda's not selling much in the way of copies.
The only other debut is Fire Emblem Warriors at 17, with no digital.
Yeah.
So
I didn't really expect that one to set the charts on fire.
no, I didn't either. It's a filler game for Nintendo, which is something Nintendo really hasn't had for a long time.
Yeah.
Every game is for the last 3 years has been an event for Nintendo.
Yeah, I just feel like the Fire Emblem. I enjoyed Fire Emblem Warriors for kind of what it was, but it's full price, which I think is a little much for that kind of game. That seems like it seems like a $40 game at best. And I also think while the characters of Fire Emblem sort of lend themselves to the gameplay style, I feel like the fans of Fire Emblem don't want that.
Yep.
It seems like if you're a turn-based strategy fan, the last thing you want is an action-based hack and slash, repetitive hack and slash game based on these characters.
Yep.
That also does not include. There's a lot of. I'm not clear on the popular and unpopular characters and individual games in the Fire Emblem series, but I saw a lot of Fire Emblem fans on social media complaining about the roster being tilted too much to this or to that and not wanting to be involved because of it.
They're always going to complain.
They want to sell you DLC from the games they actually want characters from and stuff like that. So it just felt to me like they kind of came at that sideways already by being based on the strategy franchise, and it was never going to be a big. It was a niche of a niche.
Yep. So what do you think overall about the 11% down year over year before we move on? How big of a deal do you think that is, Matt?
I don't know. I wonder what the actual percentage is when you remove hardware from the equation. I wonder how much of it's involved with digital sales becoming bigger and bigger. Obviously, we've seen some actual evidence of that finally through Destiny 2, where they said it was something like 50% or something like that.
Yeah, and Destiny 2 was one of the games they don't have digital numbers for, and on Nintendo software.
So still doing very well.
But that has been taken into account all this time, though. Even a year ago, they weren't counting digital. Now they're actually counting more than they were. And it's still down 11% year over year.
Yeah, but until you know exactly what the numbers on digital are, you're wondering. All this says to me is that people are buying fewer games at retail. Which are they buying them instead digitally? Or are they just not buying them? Period. I don't think we know the answer to that.
But think about it, a lot of these games do have their digital numbers included, though.
But we don't have numbers. We don't know.
But still, these rankings are accurate, and the total percent down year over year takes into account those digital sales. Right,
but that could mean Middle Earth and Assassin's Creed and Mario Odyssey could be selling tremendous numbers, higher numbers than the number 1, 2, and 3 games of that same week a year ago. But these games below them could be selling drastically less in comparison. So we don't know. Maybe the top games are still selling, numbers that are comparable or better, but people are buying less second games. You know what I mean? Like Evil Within 2, maybe that's not selling as many copies as the last year's equivalent of that place or something. We don't know we don't have granular enough data on this kind of thing. And I see a lot of industry folks and developers that are very worried about this and worried about what it means. And it feels like no one's.
You think that's why CD Projekt Red is?
No. Yeah. No, I think CD Projekt Red is more or less insulated from that because they make they've made one series and now a second series. They're kind of done with Witcher 3, I guess, and Gwent. Gwent is its own thing.
Yeah.
But their model works. They're not. I don't feel like they're feeling that pressure at all. I feel like they're sitting pretty in that regard, unless Cyberpunk undersells. Let's not forget. A lot of Cyberpunk at the movies this year did not do well. Cyberpunk doesn't have the draw that fantasy does.
Well, it doesn't have the draw with the younger audience it does with us.
But it did. The Matrix was a huge hit with that same audience. But if you're not the Matrix, you don't do well at the box office if you're Cyberpunk. Blade Runner did not do well.
Well, I think I'm talking about us, Generation X, our generation. We love cyber whatever. Yeah, I think the millennials aren't so hype on it as we are.
Yeah, but that predates that. Johnny Mnemonic was a bomb. Cyberpunk stuff doesn't sell to the mainstream very well.
Yeah.
The Matrix is unique in that it got that over the hump, basically.
So remember in last week's episode, we were talking about how Guy Won't was telling us that he didn't think PS5 and Xbox 2 were coming out for a while, at least 2 more years. Do you think if these numbers keep trending this direction, maybe that gets pushed forward a little bit?
No.
No?
Because I don't think that's related. I think it's like, hey, no one's buying video games, so we should make you buy a $500 system instead. It's that's not going to entice anybody.
Microsoft just tried that.
Yeah, I don't think that didn't help Forza very much.
It certainly didn't. So
I don't think that's a solution to that problem. I think a real I think it might be time, because I know enough developers who are concerned about this kind of thing too. Someone got to do some research. Someone got to figure out what's happening and why it's happening and whether it's a bad sign or whether it's just a shift to digital that we're not taking into account in the NPD.
Well, I think the research is there, and I think we're seeing that the publishers are listening to the research, and the research is the games that people are buying are the games that they can play for 2 or 3 years.
Right. Which is, of course, the natural result of shifting games in that games as a service direction.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not new. That's been there for years and years and years with all the weird little tricks and the experience level up systems and multiplayer games trying to get you to not trade that game in.
I think honestly,
they want you to play those games for months and months.
I think honestly it's been on mobile though for the most part for the last few years, and I think finally we're starting to see a lot of those nefarious practices from mobile coming over into the console.
Oh well,
side
that's
of
what
things.
the whole thing is like
League of Legends, whatever.
Yeah, but that's like the whole thing with the microtransactions and loot box stuff is like, it's not like this is new. It's been there for almost a decade. It's just now it's in games we care about.
Yeah, you're right.
It's in games we can't ignore, basically.
Yep. So, I don't know. Not exactly an encouraging NPD report. Usually around now, like, we're celebrating because it's like the best sales month of the year. I mean, honestly, November will be
we'll see.
Better,
You've got the top 3 are 3 heavy hitters. I don't know about Middle-earth sales will sustain. But you got Assassin's Creed and Super Mario, I think you're going to see them
they'll do well next month.
Top the charts this month as
and
well.
December, probably.
Yeah. And so we'll see where that goes. But the other thing is, like, you've got these sales are down reports, but then the revenue of the industry is up triple. So where's that coming from? Let's move on to our next topic.
The perfect segue. Now we're going to talk about Star Wars Battlefront II. We have talked about this game on the show several times, but Matt and I have both played the final version. How much you finished the campaign?
No, I'm like halfway through it.
I've finished the campaign. I have not played arcade in the final version. I did play arcade mode.
I finished arcade
in the beta. Okay, good. How much multiplayer have you played in the final version?
A few hours. Like I'm like level 7, I think.
Okay, I've played probably, I don't know, handful of hours of the multiplayer, but we both played the crap out of the beta. So I mostly played the multiplayer, one, to see if it's a lot better than the beta in whatever way it could be, and to play some of the new maps and some of the new objectives and things like that. So I basically went in. I wasn't worried about leveling up. I just wanted to see the content that I wasn't able to access in the beta. So
I have not had a lot of success on that. There are like 2 or 3 maps in Galactic Assault I still have not seen. I played Tatooine, Naboo, and Yavin over and over and over and over. I've never seen Hoth. I haven't seen Hoth yet. At a couple points, I would just quit games. I didn't care. I'm like, same map. I would just quit and just try to find another one. So let's start with multiplayer, since Sam fired off the multiplayer B-roll first. What's your take compared to the beta? Because we've talked about the beta a ton. I mean, the latency doesn't seem as bad.
Agreed, 1,000,000%.
The balance is off in Crazy Town in some places because of the progression system. The main thing I've run into is that air vehicles are god on the battlefield in this. And there is no real counter to them because all the anti-air weaponry is locked behind progression.
Yeah.
And to get like ion weaponry options, like some of these weapons you have to kill 250 players with them. And it's like no one has anti-vehicle weaponry at this point. And I played a Naboo match, a few Naboo matches where I got to be the Separatist. I got to play the droids. I never made the droids in the beta.
No, me too. I finally got to play as the droids.
And at a certain point, I'm like, are the droids bots? Like, what's going on? Like, are people playing as so I finally got to be the droids, and so the MTT is just driving down the street to the palace. So that's the whole thing. Is they're trying to ion blast it. So the guys would ion blast it, and there'd be people in the gunships, and they would just roast the thing. And it
ends really quickly.
They'd rack up kills from people on the ground, and we had no way to fight back. Like there was no, and you have to. There are things to unlock, but you can't get them until you've ground your way through a whole bunch of upgrades or for star cards or whatever. So that's all locked behind progression stuff, which again ties into the the loot box system and what they want you to spend the real money on. And I was constantly reminded of I didn't have I got the early access because I got the deluxe trooper or whatever, but I jumped straight into multiplayer and didn't open all my pre-order loot boxes first because I wanted to play.
Yeah.
And I was just getting housed by people with the pre-order epic cards and stuff.
Yeah.
And like that was like the improved thermal detonator and stuff like that, where it's just like, what the heck? Like, I mean, they're a tangible upgrade in a lot of ways.
The first thing I would say is I'm way better at this in the final version than I was in the beta. And
Yeah, I would
think,
agree with that.
I think part of that might be that I got into the beta late, and people had already kind of built up their characters and had gotten good at the game before I jumped in. But starting on equal ground, or I got a review code of this, so I was playing it before the public got in on it. I'm way better. Like when I played the beta, I think I got one special character the whole time I played the beta. I got a special character the first match I played in the final version of the game. So I actually got to play as like Chewbacca and like have some fun in the multiplayer. I don't know if they adjusted the point values you need to play as the hero characters or the villain characters, but I got to play as them a lot more.
I don't think they did, but there is a feature where if you're fighting in proximity to your squad, you get
more points.
More points.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that puts me way up there.
It's a
much
multiplier,
faster.
yeah.
So that works out a little better. I haven't played a lot as the various heroes because I get enough points for it, and I go in and somebody's already playing as them. That's a pretty common thing.
But I got to play as like a chicken walker, like the little mini
Yeah.
walker. Have you seen those?
Oh yeah, I've blown several of those up.
I hadn't even seen one of those playing the beta. And then I got one. I was like, oh my gosh. And I thought it was an ATST at first. And no, it's this little, like,
No, it's
almost personal size walker.
I think they were in the Naboo map.
Were they?
In the beta?
I don't remember ever seeing
They
one.
were definitely in the demo at E3 on that map. I don't know if they were in the beta. I never played as one in the beta.
But to me, the latency is way better in the final version.
Yeah, it doesn't feel nearly as weird.
I still have some issues with it, but when you're playing with like 40 people, some of that stuff is to be expected, but it's way better than it was in the beta. So to me, they improved the netcode.
The vast majority of my
significantly.
deaths in this game make sense.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
The matches, or as far as the maps, like each map, it kind of, you have different objectives that you need to accomplish with each map. They're all kind of the same, like, defend this for X amount of time, and then when you give it up, you fall back to the next position. But you can see in this map, you have to defend like 3 different turrets that they come and they try to set charges on and blow up. And once they blow up all 3, you fall back, and that's kind of the way the multiplayer works. You defend as long as you can.
It's similar to the war mode.
In Call of Duty World War II. Yep, absolutely. But I had a lot of fun with it, man. I really enjoyed it. It was good, obviously, to actually have some success playing it and be able to play some of the more fun characters and the walker stuff. I don't think I've really played it enough for me to be able to fairly pass judgment on the whole loot box thing. For me to say, yeah, without a doubt, these people have an advantage over me.
I have.
You have?
Because if you put enough, so there's people on here, and there's been some videos on this, and I've encountered them because it shows people their star card loadout when you get killed. So most of the imbalance here, the upgrades to the soldiers are not like crazy impossible, but if you get the right upgrades for these starfighters, you dominate the battlefield in a way that is really...
I will say I noticed almost immediately, one, that people were using them a lot more than they were in the beta.
Oh, yeah.
And 2, you're absolutely right. Like in the Naboo map, what is it thing called the MTT that they're blowing up? Once they shot that with the ion cannon and went down, you just saw this herd
the Spitfires
of shit
came in, and it was just like,
the sky. Like in the beta, it always made it to the building.
Yeah.
And then you had to defend those 2 spots in the building, and then finally, like the last spot. I played like 3 matches on Naboo. It never made it to the building. And
so to give you an example, basically, you have to hit the max level, I believe, in this is 20. That's the level, or at least that's the level at which you can craft the epic star cards out of the crafting bits you get out of the crates and whatever.
Yeah.
So there were people basically the method you use is this: you spend $100. I guess you can't do this anymore, but people spend $100 on crystals to get the loot crates, and those give you crafting parts. When you hit level 20, you can craft the epic versions of the cards for your interceptor, which lets you turn 20% faster and shoot 30% faster. And you own the sky.
Yeah.
And there's videos online, you can see people just taking A-wings and strafing troops and racking up 40, 50 kill streaks and stuff. I mean, and there's no, like I said, because the progression system locks away the anti-vehicle stuff, there's no, most of the people, because it's a new game, because people just started playing, there's no counter to that. Now that will be different in like a month when everybody's got progression in under their belt and they have ion things or whatever they can use to fight back. But right now, the game is basically starfighters abusing people.
Here's my biggest complaint with the multiplayer. There's no clamoring. So right now I'm trapped down in this little hole. I cannot get out.
Can you jump?
I tried jumping.
You wasn't high enough?
I could not jump high enough to get out of that. There's no climbing.
I've gotten stuck on some. At one point I actually got my foot stuck on a rock, and like the inverse kinematic thing wouldn't let the character pick his foot up off it, and so I was stuck kind of like running around in a circle around this rock until my leg like flipped inside out and popped off it. Like there's a lot of weird.
There is weird stuff. I mean, dude, the fact that there's no clambering in this game is so weird too. Like some matches start, and as soon as you get into the map, there's this like bank, and you can't go up the bank. There's this little craggly like path up the bank that you have to go up like. It's just silly. Like we were talking earlier about how PUBG doesn't have like climbing. Well, this game with hundreds of millions of dollars in budget does not have climbing or clambering in it. It's mind-boggling. But here's the thing. I still had fun with it. I think I ended up playing, I don't know, like 5 or 6 hours, something like that. And I will say, by the time the 5 or 6 hour period was up, I kind of started to burn out on it a little bit already. But
I definitely feel like I'm in burnout territory with it after the amount of time I played, and part of it is because I don't feel like, and this gets into the loot, because I think a lot of these problems do get traced back to the loot box thing, where like, okay, so like it's like I like completing the little objectives and the challenges, and I like doing like daily challenge things in games. I think that's a cool way to kind of keep me engaged and keep me checking in every day. Yeah. So there's a timed daily challenge in this game. Every day there's a thing that goes up, and basically it's like...
Get 20 kills.
Get 25 kills with a fighter, play as a heavy trooper for an hour. Basically, they're designed to take about an hour to complete.
And it encourages you to try other parts of the game you may not have tried.
The reward for doing this is 100 credits. You know what else is a 100 credit reward? Playing 2 minutes of arcade mode.
Yeah.
Like, there's no there's no balance to what your reward. And also, by the way, if you play more than 5 matches of arcade mode, it stops giving you credits.
Oh, really?
It says like, so the first night...
Well, there are credit caps for every day, right?
Right, for the arcade mode, yeah.
I thought on the whole, there's a credit cap for every day.
If there is for multiplayer, I haven't hit it.
Okay. I thought there was.
But that's a different issue, because the credits on multiplayer is a different issue. So like... So after like 5, I think you run out. You basically said you finish the arcade mode. There's no way to tell, by the way, unless you actually play a round of arcade, and then it tells you, oh, you don't get anything for this. So thanks for that, guys.
Yeah.
There's no like thing where, as far as I can tell, where it says like, oh, you've used up all your credits for the day and this. So I played it when it first came out. It was like 9 p.m. when the early access went up. And I played it, going through arcade mode, and it's like, oh, you don't get any more, you get more in 2 hours. I'm like, okay, well, 2 hours is not a tremendous amount of time to wait. The next morning I got up and I'm like, okay, I'll play some arcade mode, get some credits, wait the 2 hours, and get more credits in the afternoon, and that'll be a good way to kind of grind up some credits and play arcade mode. So I go and I load it up and I play a game, and I get my credits, and I get at 5 or whatever it was, and it goes, you can get more credits in like 17 hours. It resets at midnight.
Wow.
It's daily.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, and clearly this is a way to limit you from getting too many credits, so you can't buy too many loot boxes, so you don't have any kind of incentive to buy real money ones.
Yeah.
And with the thing with I've never run into a thing where the multiplayer stopped giving me credits, but the thing is, you get the same amount of credits every time you complete a match, whether you did well or not.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is one of the things that is sort of like grinding on me. Is like one of the things I did like about the last game is every single thing you accomplished in that match progressed your character.
Yeah, it gave you something.
Like even that 10 points for damaging somebody or doing the kill assist or whatever. It was a little blip more, like pushing you forward. And now that's all battle points to play as vehicles or heroes. And after the match is over, the only permanent upgrade is like you get your level upgrade, but that's only to gate you out of higher level cards.
Right.
And to get anything that matters for that, the level up upgrades, you have to spend the credits. And the credits, I'm getting 295 or whatever at the end of every match, whether I was the MVP or whether I just sat in the back and did nothing. Like there's no, like
it doesn't incentivize you to play well.
You don't even get more if you win or lose, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
It's just little things like that feel like they didn't think about it before. I mean, or like the heroes and villains mode or whatever. The one where it's like a 4v4, just heroes, no troops. You go in there and like, if you know, because you start, I think, so I started with like 5 or 6 heroes because of pre-order stuff. I think you might only start with 5 or 4 if you just buy the game outright. But like, there's fewer heroes unlocked at the beginning of the game than 8. You have less than 8 when you start. So if you get into a heroes versus heroes match, and 6 other people have already picked the heroes you have unlocked, you can't play.
Yeah, I know where you're going with that. Yeah.
Like, you have to unlock someone to play, to have enough characters to play that mode. And it's like, guys, like, maybe you could have just had all the heroes unlocked for the hero-specific mode. Like, maybe as a way to try out Darth Vader before you grind for him for 7 hours.
Well, you know the old saying, too many cooks in the kitchen spoils the pot or whatever? I mean, there have been, first of all, there were hundreds of cooks in the kitchen at EA, and now there are millions of cooks in the kitchen because what has happened is EA has started listening to the fan feedback. And I just think at this point, EA has just been spun around like 3 times. And now, as you said earlier, Disney came to them and said, look, you need to sort this crap out.
VentureBeat reports that the head of EA was on the phone with Bob Iger, the head of Disney. And look, I would have thought Lucasfilm might have stepped in because they control the Star Wars IP. Disney doesn't have a lot of say over the creative stuff. But Disney, clearly as the distributor of the sequel to the $1.5 billion movie that's coming out next month, must have been like, hey, CNN is reporting bad PR about this brand we paid $4 billion for. How about you knock it off?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden,
and then 3 hours later, microtransactions been pulled from the game.
And 3 hours before the game goes on sale.
And that's the great, amazing thing. It's like, this all has happened before the game even came out.
I know.
This was all early access pre-order stuff.
Well, think about, here's the weird thing about this game, is that, in my opinion, I feel like outlets have slagged this game purely because of the loot box microtransaction thing.
I mean, to be fair, it is kind of the primary thing you're butting into when you're playing it, I think.
I guess, but I feel like they've dinged this game too hard for that. Because it's so easy to change it, as we just found. They just flipped the switch 3 hours before launch. Now, all these reviews that are out there are essentially all bunk.
Although, they have not rebalanced the in-game rewards, so the grind still sucks terribly.
You're right.
Still, and now there's not even a way to cheat it with you know, if you want to spend money on it and be a dick about it. And on top of that,
they did say that they were going to lower the threshold for heroes, though.
Did they?
Yeah.
Well, that was before this, though.
It was, yeah.
And still, they lowered the reward you get for finishing the campaign to prevent you from buying anything useful from the hero. So the hero, like, it was like Vader and Luke were 60,000. They lowered that to 15,000. You used to get 20,000 for completing the campaign. Now you get 5,000. And they also haven't rebalanced. And that was a few days before the loot box stuff got turned off. And then of course now that they've turned the microtransactions off yesterday, they did not rebalance any of the in-game rewards. So you are still grinding forever to get this stuff, and that hasn't improved. It's only improved.
But that's still okay, as long as somebody else can't just plunk down a couple dollars.
But also remember, people have done that, and so there are that guy who kept killing me in the A-wing with the maxed out star cards already dropped his $100 and got that advantage.
Because those the EA Access people were playing it early. They had to play like 10 hours or whatever.
And remember, I mean, if you bought the digital deluxe version, you were in on Tuesday.
Right.
So you know, we've been playing. You know, people had several days to power up through.
And they're not taking that stuff away.
People had a couple of days to go whaling.
Yeah.
And some people clearly did.
But it's crazy. Like, it's hard to even figure out like where this game is and where it's going to end up, because literally over the last couple days, it seemed like every 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go look on SIFTD and just type in Battlefront II and go to its game page and look at its game page, literally in the last 2 days, there's been like 8 stories about it. Because EA just kept changing its stance over and over and over again. And then someone else would react and be like, oh, we're going to do that. And then their community manager would go on Reddit. It was just insane.
Well, the funny thing was, like, you know, early on when people were complaining about this stuff, I saw people who was like, it's like, you know, whining and bitching isn't going to change it. This is what the model is. I'm like, no, I thought, like, no, EA is going to get scared by this, and they did. Like they reacted.
Was it them or was it Disney?
I think it was them early on. Like dropping the price of the heroes and stuff.
Right.
That's them.
Yeah.
Shutting down the microtransactions. That was a come to Jesus phone call.
It was. Yeah.
If that Venture Beat report is right, I totally believe it. Also, remember that Bob Iger, the guy who runs Disney, has been very forthcoming in the past over mistakes he's made and bad decisions.
Right.
This is a man who made Cop Rock.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And he admits he'll make fun of it. He's like, yeah, not everything's a winner. We know that. But even beyond that kind of thing, there's weird things in this game that it feels kind of weirdly half finished. I think using the star cards as sort of like the way they use them in this versus how they use them as sort of like a custom thing. You could customize the characters however you liked in the first game, and this one it's all class-based and you're sort of modifying things.
Just like Call of Duty World War II.
Which I feel is more
like
limiting in a weird way, and it also kind of feeds into how you don't have access to the different abilities you need to take down a vehicle or whatever. The other thing is several of the star cards actually replace or heavily modify your existing abilities as the class, right? So say you do have an ion thing that can stop a vehicle, but that's not what you want to use as your primary when you're running around. You only want to use it when a vehicle is a problem in a match. There's no loadout thing.
No.
There's no way to set multiple loadouts for a class and say, I got to switch to my anti-vehicle guy for my respawn. You have to actually mess with all your star cards and do that. And I'm like, how is that not in there?
Yeah, I don't know. There are some pretty big omissions in this, but I think if you look at a lot of the design for it, it's all catered towards a casual player.
Yeah.
I think that's and in that sense, I kind of get it because...
Yeah.
I mean, it's a Star Wars shooter.
I mean, it's like if you don't care about how things are made and designed, and you just want to run around and shoot things
and shoot your blaster
and hear Star Wars music and blow things up.
I'm sure try out the fun vehicles and play as Yoda or whatever.
But I can't not be me when it comes to seeing how these things are
I
put
totally
together,
understand it. I totally get it, and I'm right there with you. I agree with you. There are things about this game that drive me mad, but I can also kind of see EA's side of it. It's
it won't matter to most of the people that buy this game.
Yeah, it won't.
In fact, and still, I would say, as hypocritical as it makes me, because I pre-ordered the damn thing a month and a half ago, I would still say don't buy this game yet.
Really?
Because look, they turned the microtransactions off temporarily.
No, you're right.
We don't know what they're going to do.
There's no guarantee that they won't be coming back.
We don't know what they're going to do. They're going to try to rebalance some stuff and make it less intrusive, but I don't know how far you can push that.
And they'll wait for the movie to come out.
Yeah, when everybody really wants to play it, and when they put their first
they'll wait for the movie to come out so Disney will stay off their back, basically.
Right.
I'm sure they told him when he called, look, okay, I understand. You don't want any bad PR before this film comes out, but I'm telling you, you are going to make a whole lot more money when we change this system back in January or whenever they do it.
I think they just need to, they need to make it a little less intrusive. They need to make the in-game rewards more substantial so you feel like you're making progress. They need to do, they don't even do the Overwatch thing where you don't get a loot box every time you level up.
No, you're right.
And the thing about Overwatch gives you a loot box every time you level up, and you can level up in Overwatch forever because of the prestige thing.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So my girlfriend's in the 800 level range when you prestige every, so she's got 800 free loot boxes.
That's crazy.
And that's fine, great. But this one only goes to 20. Let me prestige. Let me go on forever. Get a little loot box every. Maybe even the day you get a loot box every day when you log in, and it's crap. It's just a couple useless little things, maybe an emote if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Which if it was just aesthetic things would be fine, but it's not. I want a better gun.
Yeah.
And that's the screwed up part is you want to get out of these loot boxes. You want things that are going to make your character play better, which is not how you need to do that. That's the problem. It's it's got to be all aesthetic, and the solution of crafting the cards being there kind of now the high level cards have to be crafted. Yeah, but guess where you get the crafting pieces? From the loot boxes.
You're right.
It's still,
it's all tied together. Yeah.
Everything ties back
it's like a rotten apple in a barrel.
Right.
You have the one rotten apple, they're all touching each other. They're going to make all the other apples rotten as well. Mm-hmm. So I get it. But the one thing we have not talked about yet is the campaign. And we're going to play that for you guys today for a little bit, for probably about 15 minutes. I've got a mission queued up here. Before we get started, though, I want to show you kind of how the cards work, essentially, which is what Matt was just talking about. So there's two different types. There's boost cards. These are kind of overall cards that affect your character in general. I tend to use a cooldown bonus.
Cooldown bonus is, yeah, absolutely. And there's another one I use for her. The second one, I think.
You use Survivalist.
I use Survivalist as well.
Regen delay reduction. So yeah, you have a rebounding health meter in this game that you go hide and it'll finally go back up, and you can use cards to kind of increase that or decrease it. I'll follow your lead. I usually don't use 2 of those, but I will this time. And then the other one I typically use is just a grenade.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use the thermal detonator. All right, so
I like the shield, but I never use it because it replaces scan.
No, you're right.
I like scan better.
Yeah, scan comes in handy in the campaign, definitely. Just so you guys know, this is only the second mission in the campaign. I didn't use the first mission because you've seen it already. You don't realize it, but you've seen it already. This is just a second mission in the campaign. There's really no spoilers in the second mission.
No, I mean, the big cutscene they put out a while ago where she gets the Operation Cinder thing from the Admiral, like that's the cutscene after this mission.
Yep, so I'm being really careful to make sure we don't spoil anything for you guys for this, but here's the first thing you'll notice about the campaign. The loading is painfully slow.
The loading in this game is astoundingly bad. Everywhere. I mean, just over and over
No, you're right. The loading in general is really bad. It takes a long time no matter what you're talking about. Before the game starts, which means that I'll be kind of predisposed while I play, probably the first thing we should say is that you're not a huge fan of the campaign.
No.
I like it. I have enjoyed it. I did finish it. You're a much more hardcore Star Wars fan than me.
Mm-hmm. I don't dislike it much as a Star Wars fan. I think I dislike it as a storytelling fan. I think it's disjointed, and I think the characters change their minds with no motivation most of the time. I think the plot doesn't hang together very well, and I feel like I'm missing a bunch of connective tissue. I feel like stuff happens between shots, like between missions, that I'm like, well, what happened? Like, what happened between there? Because clearly everybody has a different idea of what's going on now, and like then you'll see in this mission. Aiden leads Inferno Squad, and there's 2 kind of key characters. There's Del, who's her sort of right-hand man, and there's Hesk, I think is his name, who's like kind of the guy who stays in the ship and controls stuff, who maybe might want to take her power or take her position at some point. Like it's hinted, because Imperials are very backstabby.
Here's what I love about it.
It's just like I feel like we're maybe supposed to know more about who these characters are, and like it assumes too much.
No, I'll agree with some of your points in that the game jumps. Mm-hmm. It's like they will tell you and show you kind of why someone's mind changed, but a lot of times, like we're in a film where you get like 3 or 4 scenes that would explain something to you. In this, you get 1 cutscene where they change their mind. But if you pay attention while the gameplay is happening, there are clues as to why they make the decisions that they make. Mm-hmm. And for maybe some people who are coming at this completely cold, you play as the bad guys in this. You play as the Empire. And what I love about this is, as a Star Wars fan, how conflicted I was. And I don't want to spoil anything, but how conflicted I was playing as the Empire at first. I'm like, because there are moments where you start to like these people, and maybe you haven't got there yet. And it goes against every fiber of my being to have sympathy for these people. And
well, it can't be that much, because the whole point of Return of the Jedi is the redemption of Darth Vader. So you've had sympathy for an Imperial before.
I've never really had sympathy for Darth Vader, man. I'll be perfectly honest with you.
I admit I've never quite agreed with that either, and I didn't understand it as a kid, and to me it's like...
Also, this game is flipping gorgeous.
Oh,
this
beautiful.
Campaign is mind-blowing.
Except the faces.
Yeah, the faces are bad.
The character faces are suffering from some extreme frostbite face.
But dude, this is
but
like...
the rest of it is amazing.
I mean, there are some scenes in this that literally just made me smile, Matt. Like, I just saw some... I was just like, oh my gosh. I went right back to being like a little kid again. This is annoying. Having to use a little robot to like unlock everything in the game. It starts to wear on you after a while. But these little boxes will give you a chance to kind of respec. It'll let you choose. You can even like re-equip weapons. Sometimes the game, when it starts a mission, will give you a weapon that maybe you don't like using all that much.
Yeah, it likes to give you some real bad weapons.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But you can go back in, and you can basically select the loadout that you want. You can choose your other cards if you want to. I already selected them. So.
I tend to stick with the good old E11. It's a solid, dependable blaster.
And you can see down at the bottom right there, those 3 icons. Just like the multiplayer, you have basically 3 special abilities. One is with the R1, one's with the L1, and the third one you use by squeezing both the shoulder buttons together at the same time. And then you have cooldowns. Matt was talking about how he prefers to have some abilities that help his cooldown shorten. There is stealth in this, but
I don't do it.
I hardly ever use it either. It's really freaking pointless.
I'm not here to sneak up and press R3. I'm here to shoot people with a blaster.
But yeah, take a look at this. I mean, the detail, the lighting. I mean, on a technical level, it's one of the best looking games I've ever seen. Here's the scan Matt was talking about, where you can scan. It'll
show you where everybody is.
Show you where everybody is. It'll show you kind of where the waypoints are for your mission objectives.
It's very useful in arcade mode or campaign, because like there's a lot of stuff where you just have to kill everybody in an area, and sometimes a guy will be like stuck on a rock or something, and like you have to go find him, and you can't figure out where he is, and you'll hear somebody shouting, "Get them! Look out! It's the Imperials!" And you're like, "Where are you? Tell me." Let me zero in on you so I can shoot you and move on.
Here's something I really like about this game in the shooting is the hit markers. So the hit markers they tell you whether you've killed the enemy or not, which I hate games where you're like, oh, I killed him, and then the dude comes running up and like melees you and kills you. Like, it tells you. When you see that red hit marker, that's when you know they're dead.
Yeah, and Battlefield has always been good about that. DICE has always been good about player feedback on that.
But that's just one of those little touches that I really appreciate from this game. Especially because these environments are so, like, jambled up that, like, it's very easy for enemies to just hide somewhere and just pop up and come up from behind you and just kill you. Now, I'm playing this on the default. I think it's, like, the second difficulty setting of the ones that were on offer.
Yeah, there's only 3.
Most of the missions in this game are pretty much just kill everybody and move on.
One thing I do like about it is that there's a lot of vehicle stuff, or a lot of starfighter stuff. So there's a couple of good like space battles.
There are. I mean, I was surprised at how much starfighting there is in this. And the other part, too, is that there are missions that are kind of like Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, where you go from
Now, if you hadn't had the shorter health regen thing there, you would have died.
Yeah. But there's like some Infinite Warfare stuff where you go from ship, dock the ship, go to on-foot combat, and then later in the game, you'll see when you get there, Matt, there's parts where you go ship, on foot, back to ship, back to on foot.
Which, by the way, is one of the things people really want from the multiplayer in this, but apparently they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Because that was part of Battlefront II, the pandemic game from back that was like there was ship battles where like you could get on a ship, fly out, dogfight, land on the ship, and fight through the ship and like plant a bomb or something like that. And that was one of the favorite modes on that game, and people want that to be replicated in this series, and so far they haven't done it. But I feel like that's probably going to be a mode coming through DLC down the road, because they just did it in the campaign, so why not do it in multiplayer? Obviously, it's different to have one person do it as opposed to 40, but I feel like that might be in the cards. Let's not say cards. Fuck Star. Let's not say cards when it comes to this game. Let's not do that. You can get this DLC mode if you find it in a loot box. It's like, yeah, I mean, you know me and I'm fine with like ignoring loot boxes in games, but I think this crosses the line twice.
Yeah.
In most respects.
One thing I would say is
You don't need any loot box stuff for the single player campaign, though.
One thing I would say is I would bump up the difficulty of this, and I may die here just because I'm talking while I'm playing, but it's really easy.
Yeah.
I hardly died at all playing through this entire campaign, and it also doesn't get any more challenging even at the end. Like,
and I would say the same for arcade mode. Even like the 3-star challenges, like I've breezed through all of it, and it's really not very tough.
Yeah, so I would bump up the difficulty if you want to play the campaign.
How'd you get there?
Yeah, I don't know. Somehow I ran right past him.
The other thing that's weird about it is how, the story is ostensibly Iden Versio and her kind of journey from the Battle of Endor as a true believer in the Empire, kind of the journey from the Battle of Endor to what happens to the Empire in between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. You spend a surprising amount of time not playing as her. Like, you play as other major Star Wars characters in various missions to kind of like, illustrate what's happening, but sometimes that makes sense in terms of like, okay, we got to tell the part of the story that like tells you what happens here, and it explains why a character does what they do over here. But then sometimes it's like you're on a mission and Iden's in the mission and you're just playing as somebody else for no apparent reason, and you're like, isn't Aiden the main character? Like, shouldn't I be playing as her to see what happens to her? And like, you just kind of get updates on the radio.
Well, I think some people will like that and some people won't like it, because one thing it does do, so the story skirts around the side of the original trilogy. So I didn't see stuff happening that you saw in the first 3 films. And then it kind of gives you a different perspective on the things that happen in those films.
Well, I don't know really about that. I mean, you've finished the films in this mission. Like, this is the Battle of Endor. It's over.
Well, I don't want to ruin anything, though. It's hard for me to talk about this without, like, spoiling stuff.
I don't know what you're talking about then. I'm halfway through the campaign. If there's, like, big flashbacks to earlier in this stuff, is that happening?
Well,
later?
there's when the super weapon is destroyed.
What, like the Cinder thing?
Well, it's called something else, but...
Is that a flashback, or is that, like...
No, there's a part where they're running through the woods, and they see... Yeah.
Yeah, that's in this mission. That was in the trailer, right?
Was it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That was in the E3 stuff, where they look up and they see this Death Star explode.
Yeah.
And, like, they're like, what do we do now? And, yeah, that's this mission. That's, like, the beginning of the story. But like most of this game takes place about 6 months after the Battle of Endor, after the movies end. And then there's a jump forward to the Battle of Jakku,
right?
Which is the battle that takes place like a year after Return of the Jedi. It's the remnants of it are in Force Awakens. So the idea is kind of to bridge the gap between the trilogies a little bit, and it does do that in a couple of ways with some lore, some interesting lore ideas. There's a couple of character moments that are really nice with Luke, and there's a thing that with Luke that sort of fills in a little tiny gap, kind of a question maybe people would have between trilogies. So there's some good stuff happening there. I just feel like it doesn't commit to the Iden Versio story very well.
Which
is too bad, because I like Iden Versio very well. And
I think it does, though, in the second half of the campaign. It kind of all, because you're right, there are all these cameos, and you meet up with all these characters from the original trilogy along the way.
Meanders a bit.
I don't want to spoil anything, but you meet most of the iconic characters, and some of them are more of a stretch than others, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
How you meet them and why you meet them. Oh, yeah, right here's the scene I was talking about. So I like this, though. I like seeing scenes from the original trilogy that shows you a different perspective on it, and the Empire's perspective, no less.
Right, but that's exactly my point, is like it doesn't stay with this perspective.
But it does, though, because it ends up talking about this scene specifically several times later on in the game, and how it changes their outlook on everything, and like eventually you have conversations with other people who mention this, and like it's interesting to watch how different people in the Empire view what happened, how some people are steadfast and they're like, oh no, we're still the Empire, and we're still
but
powerful.
There's also a little bit of a, like when you're, this next mission or the mission after, I think you go to a planet, you're on a planet where basically like the Imperials have a big staging area, and it's like, I mean, it's total rally at Nuremberg. I mean, the Nazi Germany imagery is thick. Because that's how the the Empire was basically based on that kind of thing, visually back in in the original movies, and there's a
game is flipping gorgeous.
Yeah, but there's a skit from, I can't remember the name of the show, but it's a British sketch comedy show, and it's like these two Nazi officers in World War II. And one of them's like, "Are we the bad guys? Like we've got skulls on our hats, and like and like they slowly realize that they're bad guys, and you get this thing where like that everyone like has kind of this like weird reaction to like one of the Empire's plans post Endor being like another super weapon idea, and everyone's like, "What did you think the Death Star was? Like you." The side you're fighting for has built two things designed to destroy planets. Like, do you think you're the benevolent? Like, I mean, it's a little ridiculous, but it's like
far with the grenade there. The people in this game can throw grenades like Ben Roethlisberger.
And of course, the other, the grenade spam is a little crazy in this
They're
game.
They're really freaking accurate for long distances.
And the other thing is like, I kind of liked if anybody remembers TIE Fighter, which. Is maybe the last game you got to play as the bad guys from a real narrative point of view.
Probably, yeah.
Because you could play an Imperial side in like the Empire at War real-time strategy game, but there wasn't a whole lot of narrative happening there. in that game in TIE Fighter, you eventually become part of the Emperor's like private like special force, kind of like Inferno Squad, like a special forces. Like we send you in for the really crazy secret stuff, and there's a medal case where you see your medals. But if you mouse over the character's arm, he pulls his sleeve up, and there's like crazy like Empire tattoos on it from like indicating when like the missions he's undertaken secretly for the Emperor. And like the interesting thing about TIE Fighter is you are part of the true believers of the Empire, and that is never questioned. And in this game, it feels like it's about
it's so weird.
The Empire doing terrible things, and everyone on the Empire side just sort of ignoring that. Whereas like,
dude, it's so hard for me to come over a hill, see a bunch of stormtroopers there, and not want to kill them.
Oh yeah, you instantly want to do
that. Like the first
that.
instinct when I saw them was like, oh, I gotta kill them, and then I'm like, no, I'm killing like the rebels. Like
in the previous game, I did that in multiplayer all the time. I saw a stormtrooper and I just shoot at him.
You just have to like.
It's like that's.
But that's why I really like this campaign, because it makes you realize that like a lot of people in the Empire were just people, who were just caught up in the whole thing. Like it gives you a whole different perspective on like who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. Oh, active reload, too. I should have mentioned that. So if you just use all your ammo, kind of a Gears of War style active ammo reload pops up.
Yeah, a game mechanic I'm surprised doesn't get ripped off more.
Yeah, I love it. And it's like if you actually hit that little blue spot...
It saved my life a few times in this game.
You immediately reload and can start firing again. There's no ammo in this game per se. You kind of have that meter for each weapon.
It's a heat meter.
Yeah. Probably just throw in a grenade and kill like 5 of these at once.
So you can see like the blue there is just a normal reload, and the yellow gives you a power boost.
Yeah. Which is, you're right, I think it's an underused mechanic. Wow,
Ooh,
what
cool.
just happened right there?
Scoutwalker
that
knocked
whole
that tree down.
Just fell down. That's crazy. And stuff like that does happen, like cool stuff like that. There's also some graphical anomalies here and there. Like,
yeah.
There you see some texture drawing, but honestly, this game is just flipping gorgeous. Like, there's so many moments of just complete awe.
There's a bunch of neat things, like later on. There's a scene where they drop AT-ATs in.
Yeah.
And like, which I think someone said they used a similar vehicle to do it in Rebels, but I'm woefully behind on Star Wars Rebels. So this is the first time I've ever actually seen an AT-AT airdropped in, and that's a pretty awesome thing.
Oh, there's one later level too that takes place in a factory. I don't know if you've got there yet.
I don't think so.
But it takes place in an AT-AT and an AT-ST factory. And you see them being assembled.
That's cool.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this campaign, Matt. I can see where...
I just think the narrative isn't there.
Look, I can see if you're really, really into Star Wars where this just falls way flat. But I think for most people who just like Star Wars... I think they're going to really enjoy the campaign.
But see, I'm not coming at it from a Star Wars fan point of view. I think the Star Wars stuff in the campaign so far has been really cool. Like the little tidbits and a little... Because remember, we are... the expanded universe isn't a thing anymore, so every and this is canon, so everything you find out in this game is new information. It's filling in gaps in this kind of new continuity. My issues with it are not as a Star Wars fan. My issues with it are as a fan of narrative that hangs together and makes sense. And I don't think
it's that bad.
I don't think that it's not as bad as some things I've played, but it is not on par.
Comparing it to a film is bad, but comparing it to video games, I don't think it's that bad, man. I really don't. Like, at least maybe wait until you finish the campaign. Well, guess what? It's Star Wars,
so I'm going to compare it to a film.
No, I understand why you're doing that. But
it's better writing than the prequels.
I think you should at least wait until you finish the campaign to pass your final judgment on it.
All right.
All I'm saying.
I am going to finish it. It's pretty short, but like, it keeps jumping off of the interesting part and making me play as other characters, and I don't care if those characters are stars of the original trilogy. That's not what I'm really interested in here.
The heck do I have right there?
I've
never used that weapon.
That is an ability thing you just pull. So you have like a chargeable scoped gun. I don't like that.
But see, I like playing as the other characters because it does provide like some variety to the game. Because the one thing I will say is, like I said, the shooting's really easy in this. Like, if you're paying attention, you'll never die in this game. Because really, it's like one headshot, they die. And so it's very easy to just kind of pluck the enemies out of the environment, especially if you're using the scan like we have here. And so the shooting kind of eventually becomes just like this means to an end. So having the ability to play as some of the other characters and the ability to play as in a lot of the vehicles kind of mixes things up. And I also think that it's short. I think it took me 5 hours to finish it. But that's the perfect amount of time.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, the vehicles are cool and like all that stuff is you get to drive some neat things, but I think considering the story and the campaign is so heavily predicated on point of view, the fact that it continually takes you out of Aiden's point of view is weird to me. And if I want to play as the hero characters in a simple kind of fast to complete like sort of demonstration of what they can do, that's what arcade mode is.
And I will say this, there are some times where it's really awkward when they try to make you play as one of the other characters. Like, it's so obvious of, oh, we need you to play as this character. So we're going to create this weird, like, side mission or this side trip to some other planet and try to rationalize why you're playing as this character. So I get that part of it, but I would just say it's only like 5.5, 6 hours long. I had a lot of fun playing the campaign.
Yeah, and the other thing, of course, is that there's some real bad voice replacements for the main characters.
I agree with that as well.
Which is weird. I mean, Luke doesn't look like Luke. Luke is a terrible face model and doesn't sound like Mark Hamill at all. The Han Solo character doesn't look... Actually, my girlfriend saw the Hero Select screen and saw the little picture of Han Solo and said, "Who's that old man?"
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't look like him. He doesn't look like the characters. And he doesn't... It's the guy who's done the Han Solo voice and the Indiana Jones voices for years and years.
He's the worst voice to me.
And it doesn't sound
game.
like him at all. Like, it's and like I know he sounds more like Harrison Ford than that on a general basis, but I don't know what happened here.
But anyway, I think we're going to call the PlayView right there. I think we gave you a good idea. And plus, we're kind of getting to the end of this mission, and there's some spoilers there that I don't want to ruin for you guys. But
such as it is.
Look, I would not say buy this game just for the campaign.
No.
But I think the campaign is absolutely worth your time. And I think it's more than just kind of like... I enjoyed this campaign way more than Call of Duty World War II's.
Yeah, I don't know if that's because it's better or because I just automatically like Star Wars better than Call of Duty. But... I mean, you make the M1 Garand make the blaster sound, and I might play it longer. I don't know. I might be that easy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thought it was going to hoping it was going to be a more interesting like kind of exploration of kind of the Imperial side of things, and it has not turned out to be that to me.
I found it pretty interesting because I mean, a lot of my impressions of the Empire are built up from being literally like a 4 or 5 year old kid, where you're literally brainwashed into believing these people are just freaking evil. They're evil incarnate. And you get a little bit of that. But you don't, though. Like, you start to see another side of some of the people in the Empire.
These are still people that have done horrible, horrible things, though. Like, Inferno Squad has done terrible, terrible things.
They have. And they address that, though.
Yeah, they do address that, but I just don't find... I mean, the Rebellion kind of works in the sense of, like, everybody's just up against this worst thing. And there's a lot of... Rogue One has shown that there's a lot of different opinions in the Rebellion. I mean... There are terrible people in there. I mean, that's the point of Rogue One, is like the people that join her to do that initial suicide mission are the saboteurs and the assassins and the people that, you know, maybe the high-end rebels don't want to admit they associate with, but they are necessary to the war movement.
Yeah.
But already I feel like so far, and I'm only halfway through, so far like that is already a more interesting assessment of that side of things than Battlefront 2 has had of the other side.
You're at the point where things are going to start changing. So I'll be interested to hear your take once you finish it. You're at the point in the campaign where things are going... What you're talking about is going to change.
I think I'm past that part, and we're just not as... I'm not as impressed by it as you are.
Maybe.
Because I am... Like, we apparently don't want to talk about the different characters you play.
You've seen the turning point, but you haven't seen... how it pays off, I guess. It's hard to talk about this without spoiling stuff. So we'll probably bring this up next week because the game's coming out anyway.
I'm going to ask you after we're done with the show's over because I don't care about spoilers. So I just want to know what you're talking about now.
All right.
But we're not going to say that for the people at home.
Yeah. So I've had a good... Here's the final thing. Buy it. Do people buy this or not?
No.
No.
Like, I can't in good conscience say buy the loot box thing that has the loot boxes pulled. We don't know what it's going to be. The campaign's 5 hours long. Like, there's nothing here to make me say go throw $60 at this right now. Like, this is a wait and see if I've ever seen one, basically.
I mean, in all honesty, a lot of the issues with the loot boxes, I get it. I understand why people are upset about it. They don't really bother me all that much. I mean, as far as someone who's just playing the game...
it bothers me in the sense
that it impacted precedents
that
other developers will emulate. And
well, that doesn't. Well, I don't think anyone's going to emulate this. I
Not now.
I think we're good there.
Yeah,
the point has been made, but like The problem I have is that the loot box integration, it's related to actual player performance, not just aesthetics. Like, that's where I draw my line on the loot box thing.
Well, I agree with you. I don't think it's right.
And I think they did this even worse than I thought they would. And then on top of that, the integration of that system has impacted how satisfying the in-game reward system is. So I feel like you don't get rewarded with enough stuff to feel like you're making steady progress if you're not spending money on it. And now you can't even spend money on it. So there's no way to feel like you're making steady progress in this game. It's purely down to, do you enjoy running around shooting people with blasters? And I do. But the thing is, and the funny thing is, like, back in the day, that was all you had. That was all games were. Yeah. Like, you play the match, do you win the match? Cool, play again. But now that you've added in this sort of upgrade grinding system, you got to make that be a rewarding part of the game too, and this game doesn't make that a rewarding part of the game. Even if you take loot boxes out of the equation, and all that stuff out, like they've already shut that down, it still doesn't feel like you're making worthwhile progress as you play this game. And
I agree.
And they need to, and I think they will rebalance. I think they will change it. Obviously, that statement yesterday indicates they will, but it's not there yet. And I mean,
and it's in words right now.
It's good. I mean, the core of it is good, and it's beautiful, and it's, you know, it's more varied. There's more than 4 planets this time, thank God. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more to do in that regard. I think the DLC modes they might add might be really cool. The Starfighter stuff, we barely talked about, the pure Starfighter combat. That's great.
It is great.
I think that's really fun. It feels like a real, like a kind of a halfway between Rogue Leader and X-Wing kind of thing in a lot of places, and I feel like they've really nailed that. They did a great job reinventing that. But it goes solidly in my stand back, wait and see what they do in the wake of what, you know, the turning off the microtransactions, their statement that we're going to bring them back later, but we're going to reevaluate how we do everything. See what their reevaluation looks like, and then decide if that's something you can live with.
I would say the more hardcore you are into shooters, the less likely you should buy it. I think for casual Star Wars fans, this is their game of the year. I really believe that. If you just want
Game of the year of 1.
Yeah, but seriously, I think if you're a hardcore Star Wars fan and aren't a really hardcore, and I have a lot of friends like this, by the way, because this is one of the games, one of the few games this year that my casual fans have reached out to me, not fans, friends, have reached out to me and said, hey, what's up with this? Mm-hmm. And after playing this game, I will tell them to buy it 1,000,000%. Like, they literally play, like my one friend plays, like, Tiger Woods PGA golf all the time because he likes golf. Like, he has like 3 games for his PS4. He should buy this. Like, he is going to love this game.
I just think you should be ready for a few more calls asking, how does this star card thing work? The whole.
I don't think you'll even know what that is.
That's possible, but
like, seriously,
I think even again,
like, that's the level I'm talking.
But even if you take out all the microtransaction problems, like, I think the whole progression system is broken and convoluted and poorly explained. And
but see, this guy plays like this mobile Star Wars turn-based RPG that he spends like $40 a month on, and he's
Galaxy of Heroes.
And he's totally fine with it. Like, these are the type of people I'm talking about.
Yeah, but he didn't pay $60 to install that.
He doesn't care. Like, he's just gonna love this game, Matt. He is going to love it. He's not discerning like us. He doesn't dig deep into games. He's like, can I play as this character, and this character? Can I fly this ship, and this ship? Can I visit this place, and this place? Check, 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 check. Buy it. That's who I'm saying buys this game without any hesitation. They're going to love it. The more you are into games, the more discerning you are. And in all honesty, most of our audience, to be perfectly honest, probably should take the wait-and-see approach. But I have had a lot of fun with this, and I am a hardcore shooter guy. I've played every damn shooter that's been released for the last, 30 years. And I still had a lot of fun with it. Like, I haven't really dug in my heels over a lot of the stuff other people have. I just really had fun playing this game. I had a lot of fun playing the campaign. So you're right. The starfighting is probably the best element of the game right now, in all honesty.
From an actual gameplay
and we hardly talked about it, which is a shame. But
because there's nothing to complain about.
You're right. Yeah,
it's just good.
Right. But I still had a lot of fun with the multiplayer. I had more fun with the final version of the multiplayer than I did in the beta, which is good. That's an improvement. The lag's better. And you're right. We're totally in a holding pattern on the whole loot box DLC thing, and EA could totally make a left turn and make it even worse than it was before.
I mainly want. I mean, I don't want to buy any loot boxes. I just want them to rebalance the in-game reward system so it rewards you properly for regular play.
No, you're right, and that's why I started to wane on the multiplayer, because I was like, what am I exactly getting out of this? Once I had played all the maps. I had used most of the hero and villain characters. I had used most of the vehicles. I was kind of left with, now what? Because you're right, you don't really get a sense of accomplishment.
And I'm worried that, so I've got enough credits right now to unlock Darth Vader. And I'm worried that once I do that...
They're going to lower the price?
No, I'm going to stop playing because I don't have anything else to work towards.
Right.
Because I don't care about opening Luke up.
So I think a lot of it just depends on what kind of player you are. Some people will buy this game who don't play shooters hardly at all. This is like the one shooter they buy every 2 years or whatever. And I think for that purpose, it's good.
All things considered...
You may not play another shooter ever again after this one. But...
Well, all things considered, I would encourage EA to look into alternate routes in terms of who makes these games going forward.
Like,
I'd love it if Respawn's game was Battlefront 3.
That's what I was about to say. Why don't you just let Respawn make it? Or just duplicate Respawn's policies? Seems to make too much sense. So, anyway, it's time for our trailer of the week. And it has been a terrible week for trailers. Well, they're not like... They're all holding them right now for PSX and for the Game Awards. So it makes sense that we're not getting much. But there was one trailer that broke a pretty big story this week that I was pretty shocked to see. And that is a trailer for the Injustice 2 Fighter Pack 3. For those of you who haven't seen this, I'm not going to spoil it for you. When we come back, I'm going to have some questions about this, though. I have no idea how this is going to work. For those of you guys who are always on the stream, now's the time to get your questions in. Make sure you go at SIFTD Games in the chat so we can pluck them out of all the other conversation really easily. But here it is, the trailer for the Fighter Pack 3 for Injustice 2.
Now that looks like fun. Mind if we play?
Dibs on the magic, lady. We fight as a team, Mikey. Fine. Coming through, dude.
So there you go. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming to Injustice 2. How does that even work? Are they going to be four separate characters or one character?
It's one character, but like it sounds like you might be able to swap them out or something. I don't think they've elaborated on how that works.
Yeah.
I mean, that was nobody thought that was coming.
Yeah, it's really shocking. Like,
but Ninja,
well, it doesn't make sense, really. I mean, they were in DC, right?
No, they're not DC.
Yeah.
But licenses can change a lot of things.
Apparently, that's mind blowing. Let's get to some questions here. W. Matthew always asks great questions. What if Disney says, screw you, EA, and gives a license to another publisher or studio? What would you want that studio to be? I vote for Obsidian. That's not me. That's what he said, by the way.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like I said before, I would prefer that Lucasfilm kind of, give their internal game division, reign to sort of contract developers and let Disney handle the publication and distribution. I can't think of a major publisher that I would trust with that license right now. I wouldn't want Activision to do it. I wouldn't want Square Enix to do it. I wouldn't want to lock it. I wouldn't want to lock it into Microsoft or Sony because it's an exclusive thing, and you want Star Wars to have as wide a distribution as possible.
What about Ubisoft?
Maybe.
That's probably the best choice of any.
Ubisoft stuff is so homogenous that I'd be worried about them making.
But Ubisoft has proven that it can make good to great games in every genre.
True.
Shooters, strategy games, action adventures, action RPGs. So if there's any publisher that I would at least feel somewhat at ease with, it would probably be Ubi.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be the least objectionable option of the
That's a good way to put
AAAs.
it. Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, we're not going to have to worry about it for a while because the deal goes through 2023. So.
Long ways to go. OTAPs. What gaming awards show do you think is the most prestigious?
Probably either the DICE Awards or the Game Developers Choice Awards.
GDC for me.
Yeah.
Game Developers Choice. So if the developers are choosing their peers,
Right.
who knows better than game developers who's making the best games?
I mean, that's what the Oscars and the Emmys and that's what those are. It's like the academies are the artists choosing their peers and recognizing their peers. And so the GDC Awards are really the closest equivalent to the Oscars we have in the industry.
I mean, their production values are pretty poor.
Right, but I mean...
They should probably put some money into them and make them better. But
Go look at photos of early Oscar telecasts. It was literally just a dinner.
Yeah.
It was a dinner, and there were statues on a long table, and they just like hand them out, and people go, thank you.
Yeah.
Like,
got to start somewhere.
Yeah, it's like it's still in the infancy.
GDC for me, definitely. Eric Estrada, 12. People seem to be expecting great things from PSX, but Sony has stated that they only have a small presentation on Friday night and not having a game showcase for Saturday since Paris Games Week just happened. What do you guys think? Shouldn't have to wait for PSX instead of showing all their stuff for PGW. Paris Games Week.
Seems to have worked out okay for them.
Yeah, I mean, they made a big splash at Paris Games Week. Now they're going to follow it up with PSX. I wouldn't be surprised if they have a little something in the Game Awards as well.
Yeah.
I think overall that kind of three-pronged strategy for Sony is really smart because it gives Sony that big push at the end of the year when everyone's deciding which console am I going to buy. I mean, right now, I just made my Christmas list yesterday, and everybody's kind of figuring out, like, what console am I going to get? And I think it's really smart that Sony has kind of shifted its focus from the beginning of the year and some of the events in the middle of the year to kind of own November and December every year. This is when people are making the tough decisions. This is when most hardware gets sold. So I think it's smart what Sony's doing.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Yeah, I got no complaints with what Sony's doing.
Here's one. Wolfox 10JC. Matt's thoughts on JL. Watching it on Monday. We talked about this before the show started, so I'll let Matt go.
It's fine. Like, it's not nearly as terrible as all the really mean reviews make it sound, and I say it as someone who thinks Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman are two of the worst things I've ever seen. The thing is, it's got three main problems, I think, and you'll see what you think when you see it, is that it has to get you to care about and be interested in three characters you've never seen before, Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman. It seems to be a sequel to a movie that never happened, because a lot of the characters as they're written and performed in this movie are completely different from how they've been portrayed. Superman in particular is utterly not the Superman that was in Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, which is great because he's much more like Superman. Like, I mean, it's a course correction and it's there, but you're like watching this, you're like, that has nothing to do with what I just watched. Like, everyone's all like mourning and upset that Superman died in Batman vs. Superman. It's like, why? Like, the guy was a dick.
Yeah,
like,
he was a
but
jerk.
now, like, you'll see, like, the very first shot, they're trying to rebuild the idea of Superman as a happy, like, fun
Someone
dude.
you actually want to
Someone
root
you
for.
want to be around, yeah. And the third one is basically like, it's kind of an abridged version of its own story. Like, it feels like it was supposed to be longer, but they didn't want to risk a longer runtime. But overall, like, and the third act is just another big, cluster of like.
Well, they're building up for the sequel. Yeah.
It's kind of, the whole movie is kind of like Act 1 is a whole hour, and then the second half is like Act 3, and there's no middle to it really. So it feels kind of disjointed. But overall, like, everybody acted like I'd expect those characters to act. It kind of hangs together more or less well if you don't think about it too hard. And like, I walked out not feeling like I'd kind of pretty much seen the Justice League. I mean, it wasn't on the heights that Avengers hit in terms of kind of like bringing these characters together and making it a rollicking kind of, wow, I was really impressed by that. But it was like, I felt like I'd seen a movie made by people who have once read those damn comic books.
That's good.
And it brought it through.
That's a start.
And there's stay for the end of the credits. There's a cool teaser at the very end of the credits that because it does the Marvel thing where like there's a little bonus thing at the end of the first chunk of the credits, and at the end of all the credits there's another thing there's a hook for like the future movies. The trouble is the next movie that would be able to capitalize that won't be out until 2020 at the earliest. So we're kind of in a mode of Star Wars game situation where even if Justice League has managed to kind of build this momentum, in a positive direction for the DC Extended Universe, they're not going to be able to do anything about that for 2 or 3 years.
Oh, jeez.
Because the next DC movie is Aquaman in December next year. So it's 13 months with no DC movie until then. Meanwhile, in that same gap, Marvel's going to put out at least 9 movies and finish their first 10 years in the making, like, epic story arc thing.
Right.
So it's like, it feels like maybe you're going to, like, you got to hope, if you're Warner Brothers, that the end of the Thanos Infinity Stone thing doesn't also mark the end of the superhero boom.
Right.
Like after you
Which
finish
it very
that,
well could.
It could. I mean, after you finish that story, do people still care beyond that? And I think the answer is probably yes.
Probably a smaller audience, though.
I don't know. Like, if you make people care about these characters, they'll come back to see these characters over and over again, whether or not the story's any good. Which is, you know, most of the Marvel movies do still follow that same structure with a different genre trapping and a blue light shooting in the sky at the end of the movie, and people go back to see these characters again.
Yeah.
So if you can make that hook work, I think you've got the feud. But basically, like, I don't know if a follow-up to Justice League is going to kindle that spark again if it's not still going. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can really turn this into a pivot moment. And a lot of it's going to rest on Aquaman, which is not a follow-up to Justice League, really, because it's already been shot, it's already been done, it probably changed a lot in post. But Aquaman in this movie is very likable and very much being played in the kind of the genre, the vein of the kind of the drunken Thor character. And he's funny.
I love that actor.
He's a lot of fun. Jason Momoa is really great as him. You get to see him really be kind of open up and care. Usually he's kind of a badass guy. No, he's like super fun in this.
Well, I've seen him on a couple talk shows this week, and I'm like, that's not the guy that I thought he was.
Totally. I mean, he's not Khal Drogo in this movie at all.
Crazy.
And so I think there's a real chance the Aquaman solo movie could end up being the best DC movie in the DC Cinematic Universe. Not ever. You're not going to top some of the
some of the Batman stuff. Yeah.
That's the other thing is, like, Danny Elfman did the music for this movie, and the Batman theme shows up.
Really?
His Batman theme shows up, and the John Williams Superman theme is in there.
Wow.
A little bit, tiny bit.
So should people go see it?
If you're interested, yeah, like maybe give it a try. Like if you
matinee maybe.
But look, man, I hated Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman.
I think everyone hated Batman vs.
Oh,
Superman.
no, they didn't.
Really?
It has its defenders, believe it or not.
That's crazy.
The standards can get real low. But I thought this movie was fine. Like, I thought that, the villain is a total throwaway, but hey, that's nothing new for these superhero movies. So, like, if you want to see some Justice League action on the big screen, this might be your only chance. So I would give it recommend it, but keep your expectations where they are, kind of thing. But I thought it was fine. It was a good year for DC movies. Between Lego Batman and this and Wonder Woman, like, I think their batting average is pretty good right now.
Yeah. Next question from, let's see, so many in here. FF8 Master C. Any plans to pick up a 4K HDR TV this Black Friday? Me, no, because I'll be right here streaming our Patreon drive. So that's semantics, obviously. I don't have to buy it on Friday. I think you're asking in general, are we getting a 4K TV this holiday season? I actually have one here at work. I don't have one at home. Am I going to move this to the house? Probably not. I'll probably leave it here. Am I buying another TV? No, I'm not.
I am probably going to pick up
4K?
One of those LG, the B7 or the C7, depending on which one I can find for which lower price.
Nice.
But that won't be right away, though.
So you're not going to get it this holiday season?
Maybe. I'm just looking at it.
How have the prices gone down for Black Friday sales for that? Have you seen any?
I haven't seen any yet, so that's kind of one of the things I'm waiting for. But right now, like you can get a C7 for about $2,500.
Okay.
Which is the C7 is one of the most gorgeous panels you'll ever see. It's I think it was described by one of my friends who saw it as looking into the face of God. And, it looks good. It looks damn good.
It's crazy to describe electronics that way. Okay, 1 or 2 more questions. The Abram, which will sell more in November, Pokemon or Battlefront? Both came out today, so it's a fair battle.
I'm going to say Pokemon.
That's a good question.
I'm going to say Pokemon.
I'm not. I'll say Battlefront.
Although
because
traditionally the third Pokemon, the Pokemon update has sold substantially less than the initial offering.
Yeah,
so.
I'm going to go Battlefront.
I don't know.
I think it'll be close, though.
I'm interested
Even though
to
it's
see.
just like kind of a rework of Sun and Moon. But
yeah.
I think it'll still be close.
Interested to see. I mean, Pokemon might be an economy of scale, just in terms of the install base of the 3DS.
That's
but,
true.
Like, I don't know. I'm interested to see if Battlefront's sales are impacted at all by the news reports and all the bad publicity. But at the same time, we just saw that it didn't hurt Shadow of War at all.
Yep, it's true.
Clearly, Battlefront 2's got to a higher level of media coverage, but I don't get the impression that people are all that concerned in general.
All right, here's the last question from Derek D111. Why are the bad faces in Battlefront 2 just whatever, but in Mass Effect they were the worst thing ever? Because the faces in Battlefront 2 are way better than the faces in Mass Effect, I think.
They're not that much better.
I think they're drastically better.
I don't.
There's nothing glitchy about them.
Oh, there's here and there, but also, I mean, it's not like the shots of Shepard going, or not Shepard, Ryder going like in the wrong place.
They're not glitchy. That's what I'm saying.
Right, but like they still have that Frostbite look where like the skin looks like paper, and it looks like, you know, Madden has this really bad too, where like the skin looks like there's no moisture or oil on it. It doesn't look like a human, and then Madden has the eye thing too, where like
they're just terrible.
The whites of the eyes are pure white, and they just don't look like an actual organism would ever have them. And like there's some of that happening in Battlefront 2. I think the weirdest thing about it is I've never seen that kind of problem in DICE's work before, because their engine, you know, they built it. It felt like Battlefield 1 doesn't have that to me. Like they look very good, and this just I feel like they barely made the 2-year deadline on this game.
They did. You know what else? DICE makes terrible campaigns typically.
Yeah.
I think this is Battlefront 2's campaign is the best campaign DICE has ever made.
I wonder if that's what Motive was working on. I mean, I wonder if the campaign had it was not DICE.
It might be.
There is a little, because the only other DICE campaign I've ever really liked was Bad Company 2.
Yep, that's it. So, and that was all because of writing, pretty much.
Right.
Really good writing. So, all right, that's it for our Q&A. It's time for a word from our sponsor. Sifters. XReturns.com is coming closer and closer to launch. We have even more in store for you throughout the rest of the holiday season. Not only are we going to make video game sales commission free throughout the holidays, we're making every other category commission free as well. Sign up at xreturns.com to swap or shop for holiday gifts for your loved ones without any added costs. All we ask is you share xreturns.com on social media so your friends and families can become part of the community too. We're looking forward to building a great community with you in the new year. Happy holidays from Extra Turns. So there you go. What did I call it earlier? 1010 in the books?
Yeah. What was it?
GameFace 1010 in the books.
1010.
Yep. That's it for the show. Don't forget, next Friday, same place, same time, plus more. We'll be doing a Patreon drive stream, trying to get it up to that $6,000 total.
Same time or noon?
Well, at this time, we will be streaming.
Right.
So yeah, same time next week. It'll start around noon though, and it's going at least from noon till midnight next Friday, and probably later. We'll see how I hold up. I will not have the wife coming this time, however, to bring me supplies to help me get over the hump. She's actually going home for Thanksgiving while I'm staying here to handle this stream. So
I can see if I can try to come by and bring you something to play.
All right.
Can you have a
It'll be like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Can you have
Maybe I'll set up a camera by the door when you walk in.
Can you have a PS3?
Oh, yeah, of course.
You bring a PS3, I'll bring you something weird.
Okay. And maybe I'll try to get Brennan here, too, and have him stop by maybe for a little bit. Try to get some people to stop by so it's not just me sitting here playing games all the time. But I will be here, and we will be driving for that Patreon goal. So thanks for watching, as always. We'll see you next week. GameFace is up and out.